everyone. We are now live on YouTube.
Alrighty. All right, it is 9:30, and so the um, school board workshop for Pinellas County will begin. If you would look at your agenda and see if there are, it's on the screen in front of you, and see if there are any corrections or additions or anything um, on the agenda that you need to bring to our attention. There are some things for leadership discussion that are listed, but that does not preclude board members from bringing their items up during that time. We won't bother to put those on. We'll just discuss them when that portion of the workshop comes forward. So, are there any changes or questions about the agenda? All right, hearing none, let's go ahead and begin. We'll start with the 2020 referendum. I believe Mr. Hendrick and Ms. Beth Rollins are on the line, but Dr. Grego, do you want to introduce this item?
Let's just go straight to it. I think everybody is absolutely familiar with our referendum, and I want to thank Beth Rollins for all of her leadership over the series of years I've worked with her. And this is actually, when I was coming on board, was the first referendum vote, and then we did one in 16, and here we are again. So certainly continue to admire her tenacity and her drive to have the school district succeed with this referendum. So here we are in 2020. So I know we're at different times, but I couldn't be more excited about trying to work this in our community for the 2020 referendum. So, Mr. Hendrick?
Yes, sir. It's my pleasure to be here this morning, board members, and Dr. Grego with Beth Rollins to speak to you about the renewal of our referendum. As Dr. Grego said, Pinellas County voters have supported the half-mil property tax 4 times since 2004. As you know, an independent committee, the Independent Citizens Referendum Oversight Committee, made up of 8 community groups, meets quarterly to oversee the distribution of the funds and ensure that money is spent as voters intend. In 2016, Pinellas County Schools referendum was approved by 76% of the voters in the election. As you know, the referendum helps recruit and retain quality teachers, and each teacher's salary is $4,700 of that salary is made up of referendum funds. It also supports classroom libraries and reading initiatives, the arts, as well as technology, and that's both visual arts and our performing arts. But now more than ever, the support of the referendum has been felt as our digital learning department has taken the lead in implementing digital instruction over the course of the last several weeks. Our digital learning department is funded in part through the referendum, and the fact that we have additional technology, a single sign-on through Clever, and knowledgeable professional trainers have made this transition much smoother. So now is the time to finalize plans for the renewal of the referendum. I'm pleased to have Beth Rollins join me to discuss this renewal process.
Hello, Board, Superintendent Grego. First off, happy National Kindergarten Day. And if I may, I'd like to take just a brief moment of personal privilege here to express my deep appreciation for everything that you have done in this time of crisis. I have been so impressed with the smooth transition to off-site learning, to providing equipment and instruction and Wi-Fi access and food. And I'm going to say that what you've done, it's awe-inspiring. It is a administrative feat that that I have watched from afar, but I just wanted to express my gratitude for the way that this school district has stepped up in this time. Given everything that you have on your plates right now, it is also time for us to take a long view to the future. And as Kevin just said, the fact that we had all of this technology in place in the classrooms has aided this transition. And we're going to get some of that technology back, and we're going to have to move forward in the years to come and continue to provide a fabulous school district for our students in their learning. So it is time for the referendum to be renewed. We have worked very closely with Mr. Kapersky. He has written ballot language that reflects the legislative requirements that are in place today. We're very pleased with the way that the ballot language is able to accommodate those, but still describe very well to the voters exactly what the intent of this referendum money is. We're thrilled that originally, when this was put into place, we did put into effect the Citizens Oversight Committee, and that those volunteers have done such an amazing job over the years. And so we would like to endorse the ballot language that Mr. Kapersky has pulled together, and we would like you to please place it on a very, very near future agenda for voting on and moving the referendum forward so that the voters can again support their school system this November. At the moment, as is demonstrated by the meeting that we're having today, we're all going to extraordinary lengths to make sure that the wheels of government and society continue to turn in the way that that we need them to, so that we can all come out of this in a better day. But putting this on the ballot now will give us time to work toward educating the voters. It will also give the county commission time to move it through their meeting schedule, and it will give the supervisor of election time to incorporate it into the ballot for November, and hopefully we'll have a very smooth election season. So today I am asking you to please put this on a very near future vote at a regular meeting. And with that, I look forward to working with voters of Pinellas County to renew this funding.
Thank you, Beth, and for the board members' knowledge, with your approval, and we would like to, we plan on putting this on the very next board meeting next Tuesday, April 28th, for your approval. So just to give you that framework.
Okay, are there any comments or questions? I don't see any hands raised in the chart on the side. And after this item is over, we're going to do a roll call to identify those that would be attending the workshop. This is a little new and I forgot to do that. So I don't see any hands raised for comments. Oh, yes, I do. There is one. Ms. Lentino?
Yeah. Hold on. Sean, can you unmute us?
Good.
Okay, was that hand raised just to let me know you're here?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Good, thank you. Okay, any questions or comments? All right, it looks like that we've understood. We talked about this several times, and I really appreciate the work that Ms. Rollins has done, and I know that we'll be working with several groups to see if this moves forward should the board decide on Tuesday to move forward with this. So thank you very much for your time and everything that you have done so far. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Beth.
All right, our next, before we do that, I would like to make sure that we have all of the board members here and the normal people that would be sitting around the table. So I'll start with Dr. Grego, obviously, is here. Dr. Corbett?
I am here.
All righty. Let me see. Mr. Kapersky?
I am here. Thank you.
I'm visualizing going around the table, which is what's taking a minute. Okay, Ms. Flowers?
I'm here. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
morning.
Ms. Kane?
I'm here. Good morning.
Okay, good. Thank you. And I would be the next person. I'm here. We already know Ms. Lentino is here. Dr. Carr? Is Dr. Carr on here?
I'm here. Good morning.
There you go. Good morning. And how about Ms. Long?
Good morning. I'm here.
There you go. And Mr. Dudley? I know he was having some computer issues, so he may rejoin us. Are you here now, Mr. Dudley? Okay.
Mr. Dudley has not joined back.
Okay. And we'll catch him when he gets back. All righty. So let's move on then, and welcome everybody. Glad you're here. Let's move to the charter school item. Is that Ms. Matway?
I am here. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, board members, Dr. Grego and staff. We are presenting two items today. I'm going to start with first the request for a 15-year high-performing charter modification for Discovery Academy of Math and Science. And so I'll ask Mr. Rick Wolf to give you a brief outline of that request. Rick?
Morning. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Great. Well, good morning. Hope everybody is safe and healthy. The first item is a request for the 15-year high-performing charter modification for Discovery Academy of Science. Discovery Academy of Science was originally approved by the board in 2011 for a K-12 school. They currently operate a K-8 school on 2 campuses. They have a K-1 campus located on Pinehurst and Dunedin, and then their grades 2 through 8 campus is located at St. Mark's on Curlew Avenue. The school received its high-performing charter status from the Department of Education in 2017, which allows them to make this request at any time. And just for the benefit of the board, I'm going to review what high-performing status is. The charter school would receive a school grade of an A for at least 2 years and no grade below a B for each of the previous 3 years, and that they receive no negative financial concerns in their audits during that 3-year period. Once they receive this high-performing status, it allows them to make this request for a modification to their charter term, as well as lowering their administrative fee that the district withholds to 2% from 5%. They have been receiving this 2% fee since 2017, so there is no cost to the district for this item.
Any questions, board members, on that particular item?
I don't see any. We can move on to the next.
I think, Rick, this is Mike Grego. I think what you want to also inform the board is that this item, along with the next item, will be on the agenda for next week's April 28th board meeting. So.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Grego. Thank you for clarifying. The other item that will be on your April 28th agenda, and it is in non-consent, we received an application from King Charter School for a request to open a school in the Pinellas County area. As you know, we have a very thorough evaluation process. Each of you have received the application evaluation instrument, which is the state instrument that we use. We have a team of experts that evaluate the section that applies to their area of expertise. We have reviewed this particular application. This will be the third time for submitting this particular application, and have had the opportunity to discuss with the board their vision for a school in Pinellas County. We do not question their intent, their passion to open a school, and I know that you have received emails in support of this school. But as staff, it is our responsibility to provide you an evaluation that is very thorough, because we want to make sure any school that we allow to open in Pinellas County will be high performing. So I will now turn it over to Rick Wolf to open this, and then we have a few others that will be joining us to share their evaluation of this particular application. Rick?
Thank you, Lori. This is a request to approve the denial for the King Charter School application. As Lori stated, this is the third submission of this application. And again, just to emphasize the thoroughness and the rigorous evaluation process that every application that's submitted to the district goes through. We have numerous staff members that have eyes on every section of the application of the 22 sections. So it's just not one person reviewing a section, it's numerous people going through each section thoroughly and rigorously. Their application is for the same type of charter school that was submitted in the first two prior applications. This would be for a K-5 charter school that would open with 108 students, opening originally with grades K through 2, and then adding a grade level each consecutive year. The mission of the school would be providing a trilingual educational program in an eco-friendly atmosphere. We did, again, go through the process, the same as we've done with all the other first two submissions, and the results were similar. We did conduct a capacity interview on April 8th with the board members. The board members at that time did let us know that there were little changes to the third submission. Much of it was, they stated, was reorganizing information and moving it from one section to the other. So the results, as you will see, are fairly similar, and we do have staff members that will provide a bit more detailed into some of the sections. Amy Hayes is going to present some of the concerns that we've had with their educational program. Amy, are you available?
Yes, thank you, Rick. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, Amy.
Yes.
Good morning, board. As Rick stated, two of the sections that did not meet the standard were the program design and the curriculum plan. The state criteria for both of these sections requires that there is a clear and coherent plan for teaching and learning, a daily schedule that complies with statutory requirements for instructional minutes. There needs to be a clear and coherent framework for teaching that aligns with the school's mission, which in this case is the trilingual immersion program. There should be an emphasis on reading instruction, and the program design and curriculum plan should impact and increase student performance. In the King application, it does not contain a clear and coherent program design or a curriculum plan. The application contains no specific curriculum outline, no resources or materials are mentioned to support a trilingual immersion program or the core academics. Student schedules do not meet the state required minutes for uninterrupted ELA instructional time at most grade levels. And there's no evidence included that supports there's an emphasis on reading instruction at the school. In general, the application has a disjointed narrative, and its inconsistent and conflicting information affects the ability for us to really determine an overall program design or a curriculum structure, a staff makeup, and an instructional framework for the school, not only for general education students, but low performing students, as well as students with disabilities, which I believe Heather Wallace is going to expand upon next. Heather.
Good morning.
As Amy already mentioned, two of the other sections that did not meet the standards set forth in the state evaluation instrument would be Section 6 and Section 7. Those sections address students with disabilities, gifted students, and also English language learners. Those sections were reviewed by members of our district staff, our ESE staff, our gifted staff, and our English language learner staff. And also Ms. Hayes and myself reviewed those sections as well. And those sections did not demonstrate a clear plan or an understanding of the laws and regulations regarding students with disabilities, gifted students, or English language learners. They actually, those sections actually contains both incorrect statements about the law and regulations that address those students. They had some outdated standards. They have standards, they reference standards that are not applicable in the state of Florida. And again, they just demonstrated no clear plan for addressing the needs of these particular students. Some of the biggest concerns were things about, they mentioned interventions being done on Saturday or after school, which is not consistent with law. Students need to receive their FAPE during the school day in case they cannot attend school on Saturdays or weekends. There really was no plan as to how services were going to be delivered. There's a number of statements that show a confusion between service of ESC students and Section 504 students. And for all of those reasons combined, we felt that the application did not meet the standards required by the state of Florida for approval of a charter school. And I believe Mr. Smith may be addressing the budget concerns next.
Yes, good morning. There were many deficiencies in the application. There were mathematical errors. There were errors in the amounts that they were using for certain projections. They did not have a clear description or plan as to how the finances would be managed. They had some deficiencies relating to fund balance. They had some deficiencies relating to projected staffing, as well as staffing for their instructional needs. So overall, the application was significantly deficient in the area of budget and financial management. I'll turn it back to Ms. Matway.
Thank you, Kevin. In conclusion, board members, we have evaluated this on the 22 standards, and based on our thorough evaluation, we have 0 that met standards, 8 areas were partially meet standards, and 11 that do not meet the standards. 3, of course, are non-rated areas. So at this time, it is our recommendation for the April 28th board meeting to deny the Keene Charter application. Are there any questions from the board?
Dr. Carr.
Thank you, Rick, for all your work on this. Really appreciate the thoroughness, and to the team for their coordination. Mr. Smith for really looking at the financial piece. While I think most of us really appreciate I can't speak for that. I can just say I really appreciate the idea of the school conceptually, and I know we've gotten a lot of emails about the school, but it seems, based on our history with previous charter schools, that the financial concerns have often been what leaves our students in a lurch. So we wouldn't really want to move forward when there are so many financial issues, along with those, how addressing the discipline concerns, particularly for our ESE students. So thank you for the work, and I appreciate your thoroughness and support your recommendation.
Thank you, Dr. Carr.
Thank you. And I see that Mr. Dudley is back and his hand is raised. Mr. Dudley?
Thank you. Yeah, it's good to be back among the living. These computers are great. It takes forever to reboot them and all that. Anyway, my only response to this is like the second or third time we've been dealing with these people, and to me, I wish there was a way we can screen them. If they don't have what they need to have, why do we even bother bringing them forward? Is there some way we can look at them. If they don't have any of the stuff done, then why we've taken 15 or 20 minutes of our time, to listen, and they still have a lot of deficiencies. To me, if they don't, if they had 1 or 2 and there was some extenuating circumstances or something, I could see bringing it forth, but they're not even close. And to me, it's a waste of our time, in a meeting like this, when we got other stuff that's more pressing. So I'm just throwing that out there. I sit there and I listen, and well, they're deficient in 11 or whatever, and I'm thinking, well, you're not even close, so why are we even doing it?
I think Mr. Kupersky might have the answer to that. Mr. Kupersky?
Yeah, yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And I think probably Mr. Dudley already knows the answer to that. But whenever anybody applies, the statute requires that we put them through the state evaluation form. And we have done that. But I can tell you that the charter office, as well as everyone who supports them, Ms. Wallace and Mr. Hendrick, Mr. Smith, they have created a streamlined process where if somebody has been denied and then they resubmit an application, they ask them to identify where in the new application revisions have been made so they can focus on those. And so we are doing our best, Mr. Dudley, to try and streamline when we have serial applicants, but they are required, we are required under law to provide the due process of giving them a full review.
Oh, it's that darn law stuff again. Gee whiz. Okay, now I understand, and you're right, I didn't understand, but I was hoping that there would be some kind of a loophole. We wouldn't have to, they corrected deficiencies, but there was a lot of deficiencies last time they did it too. So I don't know how much correction they did. And, but anyway, thank you for the explanation, and I've said my piece.
Yeah. And it is good that we've streamlined the process so that staff doesn't spend an extraordinary amount of time each time it comes through, but yet gives it the proper amount of review and looks at it seriously each time it comes through. Ms. Lentino has her hand raised, and then Dr. Grego.
Yes, I believe the 1005 and 1050 current cleaning protocols. That's not an issue. That's not an issue.
Okay, good. Thank you. Dr. Grego?
Yeah, I want to add to Mr. Dudley's comments by thanking staff for their thorough review. Each of these applications, no matter how they fall, board members reflect on the district and reflect on you as a board in terms of the thoroughness and success, or perhaps in the past, sometimes lack of success. It all comes back to the school board. It comes back to our district. So I just want to thank not only Rick and the team there, but everyone, because these charter applications impact every single division. And there's a couple of ways to go about it. I could assure you that each division takes the time, and that's the time that's above and beyond what their normal job would be, to carefully review and to provide this board the most thorough evaluation of whether we believe this particular or any charter application will be successful. So I too want to add to Dr. Carr's thank you and to many others because these reviews take time. The vote doesn't as much. You'll be seeing this on the board agenda item April 28th next week, but I just want to thank staff for their thorough review.
Good, thank you. Any other comments or questions? All right, seeing none, thank you all very much for the presentation, as well as the time and scrutiny that you gave this charter. We appreciate the attention that is necessary for each one of these. Shall we move to now the status update of continuity of instruction and operations?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to board members. This is an item that as we take off from our last board meeting and we had a series of things, I'd like to provide you some updates on each of these areas. I would like to change the order of this, and because as we say, you know, what's closest that we need to address first. And I would like to talk about our graduation plans. And I also see, and I want to thank, we have a number of principals who have joined us, senior high principals who have joined us to provide this board some input. So let me lay some of the groundwork of where we started. Obviously, last Saturday, I think 4:35, the governor had a press conference. I have to say, surprised us in terms of the timing of that, but neither here nor there. We reacted. I want to thank Beth and the communications department for putting a number of documents out to this board, to our families, and to via phone message prior to 8 o'clock that evening, explaining the status and explaining the so many different variables that were coming about. We also put out communications saying that we would be following up with more detailed plans for everything, for the closure of schools, graduation, and so forth. In the meantime, on Sunday, I want you to know, board members, that a series of senior high principals and staff met about graduations, and we talked through the graduation issue, wanting to have and adhere to some of the great traditions of our graduating seniors. And it is a heartbreaking conversation, but it's also one of life and one of circumstance. We had a lengthy discussion on Sunday, and we started to plan for multiple parallel tracks of things. Obviously, we are working, as every district in this state. I can tell you, we had a FADS conference call, and just about every district, if not all districts, are planning a virtual graduation as a backup or as an A plan. And I want to thank Sean Clark again and Beth Herendeen for organizing that. And that organization doesn't turn on a dime. This conversation that we're having with graduations is that it's going to take 3 or 4+ weeks to actually establish a meaningful virtual graduation. So we are in the planning stages of doing that. In addition to that, though, and what we talked about on Sunday and then yesterday on Monday at length, and I want to also thank Dr. Vasquez, Rita Vasquez, and Kevin Hendrick in Teaching and Learning. I mean, she is the executive director of the high schools, and I want to thank her for her continuous leadership, not only in this area, but in so many different areas. We talked about trying to reach out to our partners and to see if there was a possibility of not knowing what the future would bring and not knowing the health conditions of our state and our country in 2 to 3 to 3 to 4 months, whether it would be wise to have a dual track and plan for a delayed or postponed graduation, perhaps in the latter part of June, but more realistically in July sometime, and continue to plan and encourage all of our graduating seniors to plan and contribute to the virtual graduation in case those things don't happen. I sent to you last evening a draft that the principals have seen. I sent to you last evening also a link in there of a graduation survey to families and to seniors. And I also had a conversation yesterday with Matt Silverman from the Tampa Bay Rays. I had a conversation with the mayor of Clearwater, and I have not contacted Ruth Eckerd Hall yet, but this is within the last 12 to 18 hours. So things are moving fast, but we also have some time too. But what I wanted to bring to the board today is a feeling of that we are going on parallel tracks. We're trying to honor our graduates and trying to incorporate or to see if there is an opportunity for a more traditional graduation ceremony at the latter part of July, then we ought to maybe take a look at it. And if that doesn't work out, we have a tremendous virtual graduation that we are planning. I would like to ask some of the principals who have joined us online to see what their feelings as they're reaching out to their student leaders. And we've been in multiple hour conversations about this. And I want to just say also, with so many variables that are not known, I mean, we're making decisions based on availability of spaces. We're making decisions and guiding decisions based on not knowing what the health conditions of our community will be. And as I said during the board meeting, we will always lead with safety and health, no matter what. And our students recognize that, and our parents recognize that. So whereas we might be planning something, if given that time, if we cannot lead with safety and health, then we will be having a tremendous virtual graduation. But it is that dual that I believe is giving our students some hope. So with that, Ms. Vasquez or Dr. Vasquez, are you on the line? And maybe you can orchestrate some of the conversations with our principals, as you probably know better than I do. I'm scrolling up in terms of the participants who's on the line, but can you maybe orchestrate some of those principals?
Or if they could even just raise their hand, we can call on them if that would help her at all. She may already know an order in which. Ms. Vasquez, how can we best help you with this?
So I've unmuted myself. Want to make sure that you can hear me.
Rita, your volume is very low.
Yeah, very faint.
Let me work on that 1 second. Okay, is this better, Dr. Grego?
Slightly.
Barely.
Okay, let me speak up a little bit more then. Good morning, board members, Dr. Grego and staff. I've been thinking about what part of the school year any one of us could like more than the other part. There's always the amazing beginning of the school year, right? And then every month there's something to celebrate about what our schools or our students are doing. But I know I'm biased in this, and the principals that are on the line with us right now also are as well, but I can't think of another part of the school year that so many of us look forward to more each year than our graduation ceremonies. These ceremonies, of course, are a place where we get to chance to focus fully on celebrating our students and their incredible accomplishments, and thank our schools and our principals and our staffs for the great work that they do in getting all of us, including the students, there. And there are a few principals on the line with us today that are going to be able to share some of the specific things that they're working on with their students and their teachers and their staffs to prepare so that we are ready under any circumstance to celebrate our students in very dignified, very tradition-laden ceremonies, no matter the format that is allowable in the coming weeks and months. As Dr. Grego so beautifully has introduced, one such format could in fact be a virtual graduation ceremony that we would conduct. And he's also stated that we've been working with our media and our communication departments really for a very long amount of time now, because it is not something that happens overnight. It takes a lot of care and preparation when you want it to be as dignified and as celebratory of each of our students' accomplishments. So we've been working together to create a digital media package, in essence, that schools, including teachers, and especially including students, can personalize and customize to match their very dignified ceremonies, where the students give speeches to their classmates, students are awarded or recognized as they would have been done in person, and special school traditions like Pinellas Park High School's ringing of the bell will still take place, even though virtually. Or Gibbs High's pretty much Broadway-ready student performances can still be incorporated and still be viewed and as part of the remembrance package for all of the graduates. We've met often and online and long with high school principals, and they have had their students continue in this work or engage in this work, and in other special plans that they have, by the way, what could be post even a virtual graduation ceremony if that's the way we go. What I'd like to do right now is begin by asking Dr. Gonzalez to talk with you next and to share some of the special plans that either she's working on with her school team, specifically for Palm Harbor, or she's also got a really special item to share with you that really she and Carmela and Lisa Fatalides, Carmela Haley and Lisa really spearheaded that all schools are participating in, that I think we'll be really excited about. So Dr. Gonzalez.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
So one of the things that we, as Dr. Vasquez had shared, that we were trying to work on just to kind of keep that school spirit going for our seniors, because as we know that they feel as though most of their normal senior traditions have been canceled, such as prom, senior breakfast, many award ceremonies. So we're trying to keep the spirits up of our seniors, and also wanting to recognize them within the community. So one of the ways that we came up with was these really cool yard signs. And we have, I asked Elizabeth to put them up so you guys can see them. So these are just a sample. This is just Palm Harbor's proof that they sent to me. But we bought these for all of our seniors, and we will be handing them out to them when they pick up their cap and gown so that they can happily display them in their yards or their windows or wherever it is they reside, to be able to show people that they are a graduate of said high school and that they're graduating this year. So just one way to showcase them and celebrate with them, and also for the community to know that they are a graduate as well. We also have been working with them, as Dr. Vasquez said, in regards to their speeches and making sure that they're ready for the virtual graduation, if that's the route we go. I do know that just the few conversations that we've had thus far, that I think parents would like the fact, and the students would like the fact, if we hold out till July, and if we're able to, by CDC guidelines and the governor, to be able to have those delayed graduations, I feel that the students would and their parents would feel that would be the best option. However, if we do have to have a virtual, I think that the platform that's been created by Sean and his team is going to be amazing, and it's going to showcase the students as well.
Thank you, Kristen. If I could insert again for a moment before asking Mr. Masterides to speak a bit, but Kristen just raised a really important point that I can say to you universally, all of the high school principals really express and have done so consistently as we've been working on this. So ideally, all of these high school principals really know that their students, their communities, that have worked so hard for so many years to ensure kids successfully complete high school, right, really wish to have an in-person ceremony. So it is really important to this group, and I know that, you know, these feelings are shared, that we do not do something in May at the very, very end of the school year, right, that would be virtually immediately, just in case we have that opportunity to do that in-person ceremony. So we feel there is less to lose, that out of all the things that Kristen just described so beautifully, that we've lost, in essence, for our seniors, however you want to look at that as a loss, that we certainly have a little bit of time that we can work with here to see if Dr. Grego can continue to leverage those conversations with the Tampa Bay Rays and community leaders and our city government, for example, and our community government, to make sure that we can do something that is safe. We definitely, of course, that is and will always be first and foremost on our minds. The safety of our students and our staff and our community must always come first. And if it comes down to it, I have no doubt that we would err on the side of a virtual ceremony that contains all of the elements that our students expect and fully deserve, but that would keep everyone safe, not just for the short term, right, but for the long term as well. We have such a bigger picture to look at than just how these ceremonies are conducted in any one moment in time and space. So all of these options are on the table. We certainly don't want to look at doing anything too quickly in May. Want to make sure we've exhausted the capacity to do something 100% safely in person. And once that's done, I think that everybody will see the amount of effort and time and thought and collaboration that's been put into the virtual ceremonies. Mr. Masterides, would you like to share a little bit more? Because he's done some extraordinary work with seniors and has all along, by the way, to make sure that they've been connected to his school and really feel like, yes, they may be losing something in the physical proximity, but they are not losing the personal connections. Mr. Masterides?
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Vasquez and school board. Good morning. Good to hear your voices. Miss you all. And Dr. Grego, I want to take a moment and thank you for your leadership and the teams as well. When you take a look at where we are right now in regards to graduation and the message that's been sent, hope is out there for sure. And I can tell you that the kids, the parents, what I've heard in the last 24 hours is nothing but positives. So they really appreciate what you all are doing to ensure that we're doing the best we can within the parameters. And that's really, really important. They really appreciate that. Talking about the communication piece, I've had open communication with our seniors regarding all aspects of senior life. And when you think about grades, attendance, post-graduation activities, and of course, there's senior activities, which ultimately is graduation. We've been working with all of our seniors on the platform we're using right now, Microsoft Teams. We've developed a Microsoft team for just our seniors And we've been sharing all kinds of information, allowing them to ask questions, and then giving them opportunity to, for us to respond and share what's going on and what we're doing. So they've been really in the loop since the beginning in regards to where we are with graduations and what to do. Also with our graduation committee, our senior class officers sit on that, and we've been meeting with them as well, trying to determine, number one, what could a virtual ceremony look like, feel like if we have to do it, and then what would we do for those pieces that we wouldn't be able to do during that ceremony. And what we've decided, and really that's the direction of the district, is if we have to do that, they'll do the virtual ceremony. It's going to be very close to the traditional, in that we're going to have all of our traditions, who speaks, when they speak. And again, Rita and the team with Sean and Beth, thank you so much, because it is very flexible and personalized. So we are able to keep our traditions within that virtual if we have to do it. But one of the things the kids were excited about was the fact that if we have to do this virtual ceremony, having an event at the end of the summer, a culminating event in which they could do things like have all the families there, wear their cap and gowns. They may be able to walk across some type of stage with a picture opportunity, eat dinner together, get their senior awards. And most importantly, the two pieces that they said after that is they really want to see their teachers again. At our school, we have a receiving line at the end of graduation. So it's a lot of hugs and tears, and they know they can't hug them, but they at least want to see their teachers again. Because if you remember, when these, at the end of spring break, that's when this all happened. So when they left for spring break, nobody had an idea that this was going to happen, right? So when you think about where they are in their minds, they want to be able to come back on the campus. They want that closure. They want to see their teachers one last time. And that's really, really important to them, that they be able to see their teachers, come on the campus, see each other, and have that closure. We're planning to do some things with cap and gowns, giving them out, and then after graduation, if we have to do the virtual, them coming by the school to get their diplomas and doing something with that. Maybe it's a drive-by where we have the teachers out in the parking lot, something like that. But, we're looking at lots of opportunities and making sure that the kids are involved. Ultimately they want their ceremony, but they get it. They understand where we are. They're not blaming anybody. They are disappointed, obviously, but they know that we're doing all we can within the parameters, and they really, really appreciate that.
Thank you, Keith. And we have two mics on with us as well. We have Mike Benet and Mike Hernandez. Mike Hernandez, would you be able to share some things, please? Mr. Hernandez, if you're with us, can you unmute? Or we can go to Mr. Benet.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mike.
Okay, good morning. Good morning, Dr. Grego and school board. I want to echo Keith's gratitude. I just want to tell you how much our communities appreciate the support and love that you have shared and have given and have stood behind us, and what a privilege it is to work for Pinellas County Schools. Very honored to be a principal in our community. Very honored to work with our families, and I truly believe that we are innovators in the way that we are doing things, and we've been doing things in such a tremendous way. It's been providing great support to our families, and they really appreciate that. Graduation, we've had lots of discussions and a lot of families reaching out to me personally, and to echo what has been said already, they would love to have some kind of in-person graduation, even if that's postponed to June, July, or whatever it may be. It's just that final cherry on top of the ice cream. It's what you look forward to your whole life. When you're in elementary all the way through high school, is that time where you're going to someday graduate and receive your diploma and do it on a stage and be recognized by family and friends and your school community. It's a big deal. So anything that we're able to do to help support that vision and wish of our families and communities, I think that we need to do everything we can to honor it. I love the idea of the virtual work that is happening. Kudos to Sean Clark. Outstanding job, Sean, in setting up the platform. It is tremendous. And I think it's something that, we had discussion in our meeting about doing both. You know, if we have the virtual ready to go and we did a live one, and it gives our students and families choice. If they're not comfortable for a live graduation, they now have a virtual platform that they can watch and cherish and have, and they have a token to cap off their year that they may not have had otherwise. So we're excited about the opportunity. I know a lot of schools do a lot of special things. Our chorus has already put together a montage of our alma mater that they had posted on a YouTube channel and shared with our staff, but we plan on using that as part of our graduation ceremony, and the kids are ready to go. So it will be very special, either platform, but if we have the ability to do both, I think that there's a lot of benefit there. So thank you for your time. I appreciate the work that you're doing, and thank you for inviting me here today.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Mr. Benet, you would mind?
Good morning. Yeah, good morning, everyone. Good morning, school board. Good morning, Dr. Grego, all in attendance. Pretty much everything that you've already heard from our principals and Dr. Vasquez falls true with Osceola Fundamental High School. The parents and the students are really hoping for an in-person graduation to be deferred later in the summer. We are communicating the virtual graduation also as a plan B backup if we're able to do if the in-person didn't work out. But kind of like what Mr. Mastorati said, we are gearing up for a celebration at some point during the summer when it's deemed safe by our health officials. Looking forward to giving out the caps and gowns and the yard window signs and setting up a process similar to the digital distribution to do that. But really staying in communication with staff, our families, our communities is really, like all the other principals, #1 priority to making sure that the information is correct and being distributed in an appropriate manner. But really impressed with Miss Beth and Sean and everybody involved. What an amazing job. Dr. Vasquez, Dr. Grego, everybody really on board and doing what we can to provide the best opportunity for all of our graduates of the class of 2020. That's pretty much where we are. Thank you for the opportunity today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Benet. And we have two more incredible principals. We have Bob Florio and Carmela Haley. Ms. Haley or Mr. Florio, would you please unmute so you can speak to the board?
Good morning. Ladies first. Carmela, if you're there.
Thank you, Mr. Florio. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, school board. Wonderful to talk to everybody. So at Eastlake High School, I am going to echo everything that is said before me. The support from district staff has been so wonderful for our families and for everybody. At Eastlake, we are also trying to do as much as we can for our seniors, including the yard signs and making things as normal as possible, because we know in abnormal times we try to do things as normally as possible, and of course we can't replicate what we would normally do because of the health crisis. We are looking to do a virtual prom. We figured out a platform to do that and work within a little thing, because I think the students were asking about how can we do that, and I am working with student government also. I have a meeting with them, as a matter of fact, this afternoon. We were also looking at trying to replicate like a senior breakfast. Of course, they are not able to attend their senior breakfast, but when they can pick up their caps and gowns and their yard signs, we're looking to do a senior spirit bag with maybe a Chick-fil-A coupon in there as their breakfast, where they would also have their senior superlatives announced in the bag. Maybe put their prom remembrance, they get a remembrance at their prom, put that in the bag, and also they do get something at their senior breakfast, a remembrance, and put that in the bag, and whatever else we think we could do to celebrate our seniors. But I also just wanted to add about the graduation. I know if it has to be done virtually, it's going to be fantastic. I'm so impressed with Sean and Ms. Herendine and everyone else, and Dr. Vasquez, Mr. Hendrick, everyone who's been so supportive. Of course, our wonderful leader, Dr. Grego, but just to give the bit of hope to our seniors and families that there is a possibility that maybe late July, they will be able to have that special day that they've worked so hard for. And we don't want to give them the false hope, as Dr. Vasquez has said previously, but just if there is any opportunity mid-July to do that, I know our families would be and students would be so appreciative. And I just wanted to pass it along. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Florio.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in this forum. I just want to talk about, what we're doing here at Dixie Hollands is echoes and mirrors everything that has been aforementioned, so I won't go into details, but we are working diligently to make our seniors and their families and all our stakeholders at our school feel special. What we're meeting to do is we prepare for the virtual. To frame or couch the discussion as far as what graduation is for the good of the board, I think the possibility of a graduation ceremony in person, whether that's in June or July, as Dr. Grego said, I think is tremendous. And as others have said, I think, just that little hope or that possibility has led to, hope, and hope breeds optimism, and optimism buoys the spirit. And I think that's right on time and a prescription that our entire district and our school and our seniors and our families really need and can use at this time, with the caveat knowing that there's a lot of unknowns and it may not happen, but it's very, very important. All the 7 stages of grief, but I know one of them is depression. I think as we're halfway in there, as Mr. Mastriatis said, I think the realization that we're not coming back with the announcement from the governor this weekend has really hit home with everybody. I know it. I haven't to it finally has come to the decision where we're not coming back. Everybody has talked about at some form in their life closure, and without that, it's a very difficult thing. So it's really hard to process. So the possibility and the hope of in live graduation has really done wonders and will continue to do wonders, and it's something that is valuable and worth pursuing for
Thank you, Mr.
time as we simultaneously prepare for the virtual graduation, which is important as well. We set up ourselves possibly for a win-win situation, which we haven't been able to see too much during this circumstance for the students. Families could participate in live graduation.
Bob, you're breaking up quite a bit. I don't know if it's with everyone else too, so I don't know how far you are from the router, but just to give you a heads up on that. Any other comments, Bob?
So Dr. Grego, this is Rita. Let me tell you that I've gotten a couple of messages from Ms. Herendeen and Mr. Hendrick that we also have Ms. Fatalides,
Okay.
Mr. Patterson, and I believe we also may have Mr. Biggie on the line. If there is a chance, I think that this is so deeply important to them to join this group, if they may be able to share.
Mrs. Cook, if that's okay. I mean, we're a little bit ahead schedule. I appreciate these folks wanting to jump on. I'm really quite tickled that everyone's coming on. They really want to be heard. So it's a great format to do that, but it's up to you.
No, that is absolutely acceptable.
Okay.
So who would like to go first? Again, if you have the ability to just raise your hand, I don't.
Rita, just call on them and
Ms.
let's
Vasquez, go ahead and
move.
yeah.
Thank you. Please, Ms. Fatalides, if you can unmute.
Board members, Dr. Grego and staff. It's a pleasure to be here this morning, and thank you for this opportunity. Just would like to follow up, again, echo some of the comments that were made from my colleagues this morning regarding our school spirit, keeping our seniors and their families up in good spirits, and the rest of our staff under these unique circumstances. The support and instructional delivery continuity plan has been fabulous. Kudos to all that have been involved in the planning with that. It has been seamless. Our students are engaged and our staff are very, very committed to providing the best. Also, kudos to Sean and his team for the virtual graduation ceremony, logistics, and framework. again, under the circumstances, it provides a first class ceremony and recognition to our seniors and their student success. However, in representing the community of Tarpon Springs, I will say that our students understand our circumstances, our parents understand. However, there is that still option of hope if we can exhaust all options for a face-to-face, in-person graduation at some point when it is safe to resume that type of gathering. That is what has been the reoccurring message, that they do accept the virtual and would accept it with open arms. However, if there was anything on the table to further discuss or defer to an in-person graduation, they have charged me with looking into that. So on behalf of the community of Tarpon, just wanted to share that we will be prepared either way for virtual and also for the live, in-person delayed graduation. Looking forward to celebrating our seniors one way or another.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. Mr. Vigu, if you're with us, if you can go ahead and share.
Good morning, everybody. It's Mike Vigor from Bogosiaga. Obviously, the in-person celebration is clearly the best preference, or the preference of the Bogosiaga High School community. We're excited for the opportunity to be involved in the planning, as others have alluded to. And as my colleagues have expressed, we're going to remain flexible as we're actively planning for the dual opportunities that Dr. Grego is creating for us. So I just want to say thank you for the support and involvement.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Mike. And Mr. Patterson, Pinellas Park High, I mentioned your bell specifically.
Yes, you did. And good morning, members of the board, Dr. Grego, Dr. Vasquez, and everybody else in attendance. As said several times, thank you for the opportunity to be part of this discussion. The word hope has been mentioned several times. I think that's key. This opportunity to have the planning for both platforms of graduation and recognizing our students and families, I think has just provided that opportunity of hope, and at least had the students and families be able to provide some voice in their desires, and for us to be able to recognize all of the work that they have accomplished. So again, thank you for pushing that and bringing that to our ability, and Sean Clark and everybody else that has given us those platforms. We discuss a lot about social emotional learning during our instructional practice. I think that we all are obviously sequestered to wherever we are, and our students in the same place, and are certainly longing for an opportunity to have some social interaction. And they also understand that that's not, we have to follow safe protocols, etc. But they also know that we are listening to them to be able to provide that social event and that celebration if safety allows. Something that additionally we're doing at Pinellas Park High School is looking at, again, when time allows later in the summer, possibly having a yearbook signing ceremony and some other things that we can do to bring the students back in to kind of have a social event that would be in lieu of their prom and the other things that they have missed out on. So thank you again for all of the hard work that everybody's done in providing the opportunity for our students and the Pinellas County Schools community as a whole.
Well, that was something. Rita, are there any other principals that have joined us this morning?
No, Doctor, but that is it.
Okay. All right. Well, let me say a blanket thank you. I am so thrilled that so many of you wanted to get on, and I can't thank you enough for your comments and your work, and to say to board members that literally within, I think, 24 hours from Sunday afternoon to Monday afternoon, we have this dual track, and that's how quick our principal leaders are turning things around. We talk about the school turning around in the school district in 2 weeks and digital platform, and that's remarkable. But the discussion from Saturday night to Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock to Monday at 1 o'clock, really 24 hours. So basically what I was trying to express here is to get the feel, and we have a survey that's going out within that letter. I have a draft that I sent to this board, because I do name the board members, and I want this board to be right out in front. And when I start that letter, I say, I and the Pinellas County School Board are committed to ensuring all graduates. So I felt it was so important to bring this kind of conversation to the workshop and gain your full support. As I close this letter, the Pinellas County School Board and I recognize is not optimal way, and you can certainly read that letter. So what we're doing is we're planning on both an in-person and a virtual commencement ceremony, trying to respect all of the traditions and knowing that the in-person ceremony during the summer has a lot of unknowns, and we continue to lead with that. And our principals will be the frontline voices to their students and their student leaders. If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, we have a tremendous backdrop, and that is of the virtual graduation. No matter where you're at in the world, you'll be able to participate. So that's where we're at. I guess the second to last paragraph of this draft letter, if you endorse it, is I say the best case scenario is that all of our planning for virtual is not needed. However, that if we are able to have a live graduation, that virtual ceremony will be a keepsake for each and every graduate and their families, from this board and our district to them. And they'll always remember this year. And I think they'll remember it either way, but they'll always remember this year in terms of having that gift from this board and from our district. So that's our desire, and Mrs. Cook, and I'd like to hear from the board if they're fine with us proceeding in this way.
I imagine other board members are as well, but I am so grateful for the caring and thoughtful and sensitive way in which this whole topic has been addressed and what they're doing for the seniors and their graduation. I think you've given them some hope in a time when that's needed right now. And I'm excited about the creativity and how quickly that all came together. I think maybe with many of these ideas, you may even be starting some new traditions that will go on for future graduations and graduates. So thank you so much for being so open to this and to actually incorporate as many of the students that you can as time has gone by. And I think no matter which way we end up having to go with this, you will make it meaningful for the students, and I really appreciate that. Dr. Carr, your hand is raised.
Thank you.
There you
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
I want to just say thank you to the principals again for being here. You have some of the, I think maybe perhaps one of the biggest jobs. You're like your own mayor, really. And in this time of crisis, so many people turn to you. So thank you for coordinating your students and obtaining their input and reflecting their concerns, as well as the community concerns. I'm also a mom of a senior this year. And so it's personal to me too. I'm very disappointed about, not having a ceremony. You guys know I was even asking for his school to be the one that I get to attend. But I also think that it's really great that we have hope. I hear a lot of talk of hope. I know some of the kids put together petitions and are trying to work towards this, and making sure we validate them is so important. And I hear how so many of you are doing that, and I appreciate that. I think the other piece that is important is that while we want to hold on to our traditions and celebrate these milestones, we also want to focus on the potential future milestones that they're going to accomplish. So, while the graduation ceremony is a key milestone in many of our lives, there's a lot out there for them in the future, whether they're going to finish boot camp or graduate from Pinellas Technical College, or they're going to run a marathon, or they're going to have a baby someday, or they're going to write a book or have 1 million followers on their YouTube channel. Though, knowing that those future milestones are really important too. And while this milestone may look different, it's still valuable, but there's a whole lot more that they can do and accomplish. And really clinging to that, as it is a key in our mission, is that we're preparing them for the future. Lastly, just in response to your letter, Dr. Grego, where you are going to survey, my only concern with that is we have the input. We know people want to have a face-to-face traditional graduation, and I'm just not sure about the benefits of the survey. I think a letter is really valuable and acknowledging that we're doing the very best. But when it comes to survey design, some of the key ethical practices are to make sure that we utilize the input in decision-making. And it almost feels like we're going to ask them what they want, and then because of circumstances beyond our control, we're not going to be able to truly give it to them. So I would be reluctant to incorporate a survey because this is a group that we want to continue to survey in the future. And we want them to feel that we value their perspective and to not, have it inform our decision. We're already trying to make it be in person. So I just wanted to express concerns about the survey, thank the principals, and just as a personal note too, thank you to the principals, to your teachers for reaching out. I know that this senioritis is just exacerbated by this situation, and the lack of hope and a culminating activity is really a challenge to keep them on track. So thank you to all your teachers who are really doing so much overtime, tracking the kids and getting them on track to graduate. So thanks, that's the end of my comment.
Okay, we have Miss Lentino.
Oh, Miss Lentino.
Go ahead.
And her microphone went off.
I'm very well.
There we go.
I'm very well engaged.
Okay. Ms. Long.
Yes, thank you. Thank you to all the principals and to the staff. Such wonderful ideas. It's amazing when we all put our minds together how far we can come. Nicole, I know what you're going through. As a parent of a senior from last year, the heartbreak is just, I can't even imagine. But with all due respect, I do feel that survey is important because it is giving parents, all parents, an opportunity to express how they feel. And a survey doesn't mean we're going to take their recommendations, but it gives them an opportunity to express to us how they feel. And, that's one of the criticisms we get as a district is that we don't include the public enough. We don't include parents enough. And Dr. Grego, I really feel strongly that you are reaching out to the community, and it doesn't mean we have to take their input, but we at least listen to it. We might come up with some really clever ideas from the survey, and I think that's extremely important for our community. So, I thank everyone.
Okay, good, thank you. Mr. Dudley.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I want to parrot what Ms. Long just said. I agree with the survey. I think it's important because we are, our students are the stakeholders in this thing. I mean, there's a lot of them, but they're the ones that are ultimately being affected. And I think it, by, one of the things that gets people in trouble or groups in trouble is when they fail to communicate. I think this gives parents an opportunity to communicate their wishes as well as the graduates. And I think that is very important. I think based on what our principals, the 9 of them that spoke, every one of them has reached out to their leadership in their schools, and they put some elbow grease into this thing. They've got some sweat in this thing, and they have ideas, and I think they probably parrot what most of the seniors want. Now, having said that, obviously there are going to be some kids that are not going to be able, not going to show. There's always going to be that part of the population that that's going to. I mean, some of them have a hard time going to graduation and whatever for whatever reason. But I think we need to give them the opportunity to try to be as normal as abnormal it can be with the ceremony. And I think that I really do appreciate the principals who have gotten up and made that call, and they worked. I know they worked over the weekend, and I really do appreciate it. And that's what leadership's about. You know, you have to sometimes just bite the bullet and do the best you can with what you got and move on. And I think that I really was impressed by the letter, Dr. Grego. I thought you all did a nice job in drafting that. And I think the survey, it's short enough, it's to the point, and I think we'd be remiss if we didn't include our stakeholders. The only thing I would like to do, only thing I would request is when the results are in, if you could share that with us, I'd like to see just what the numbers are. And that's all I have. And again, thank you to all the principals who have taken the time and are working towards this. You know, we're all educators. Some of us spend a lot of time in the classroom and spend a lot of time with kids, and we know what they're going through. I still fondly remember, even though it was the last century, about the time the wheel was invented, I still remember my graduation and all that stuff that went with it very fondly. And I would think that these kids want to have that memory too. They're going to have quite a story to tell at their reunions, but I think it's important that we include them. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. Grego, may I ask one question before I call on you?
Sure.
These surveys are going to the individual, back to the individual school, so that the principals will be able to look at that information, right, and possibly incorporate the ideas from that into their graduation. Is that correct?
Yeah, it actually comes to district. We could sort them by school and then provide them to the principal.
Okay. Now it's your turn. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Hey, thank you so much. And let me, just for the board's sake, as a staff and as principals, we went back and forth. It's kind of, I have a smile on my face that you can't see, because we went back and forth on this survey. You know, it was out, it was in, it was out, it was in, it was back and forth, and we simplified it. And it was, in fact, when it was out, it was given to the principals to give, not from the district. And it landed back here, I think, as a means of saying we care, we're planning, you know, as you heard, these principals have talked with their students, their student leaders, but we wanted all voices to be heard. So, you know, it went back and forth. So I so appreciate the conversation. You know, we are making hundreds of decisions a week, trying to make them all right and trying to figure out the details of each of these things. But you know, so anyway, it was a joint decision to try to see, I think it's 3 questions, this survey, to see the degree that maybe some people are really uncomfortable with even gathering back together, even if it's July. And we need to weigh that in terms of how we might have to do a dual graduation in July if we're able to do it. So a lot of unknowns with that, but I want to say thank you for your input as a board. The plan is to have this letter go to the seniors and their families right after, you know, this afternoon sometime, and give a few days to just shoot a comment back, and let's hear from them and see what we come up with. But these principals have done amazing work to already get a tremendous feedback to it. So to that point, Dr. Carr, I agree. We kind of know what the direction we're moving in. We just want to see if there's anything else that we might learn from it. So with that, I want to thank you. I know that this was going to take a little bit longer. This is This is a big deal, and I want to thank the board for taking some time, and our principals also for taking the time. You're welcome to stay on if you'd like, but I also understand you have a full day. I want to ask the staff to go down the next issues and only
Not
mention.
yet, not yet. Dr. Carr has her hand raised.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Carr?
Thank you, Ms. Crooks. The only other thought too, I appreciate that, and thank you for just the discussion. The only other thought I had too was, I know some of the students had brought up the idea of potentially outdoor, since folks were concerned as the potential of a July, how the Air Force had done. The Air Force Academy recently did their graduation in an outdoor venue. I know some of the students brought up the idea of having their graduation potentially, if it's an option on the table, still in July, not necessarily at an indoor facility, but pared down and potentially at their individual school sites in their fields, like it had been done in the past with smaller attendance and things like that. So I just wanted to share that. I know I have students telling me that that was something they had brought forward. So maybe it'll be captured in the survey, and that validates, utilizing the survey. So thank you again.
No, that's that's a great comment. In fact, that is one of the things that's on the table, is that we can all go to our football field and limit the number of tickets. Not every district has a full stadium like we do at Tropicana Field, so we're looking at that. But to your point, I think that has to be an option that remains on the table with limited attendance and having it outside. Yeah. Okay. If anybody else, Mrs. Cook, I apologize.
No, that looks like it. You're good.
Okay. If I could ask staff to just state
sorry,
any.
Carol, I did try to raise my hand, but I can wait until Dr. Grego speaks.
No, go ahead.
Graduation?
I'm finished.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Ms. Flowers.
First of all, I support the survey because I've also received some comments about safety concerns for having graduation if we are not out of danger related to the coronavirus. So I think it would only be fair to capture the comments, no matter what comments are presented. I do believe, though, when we submit this survey, we're going to get a wide variety of ideas. So, I would hope, and I feel fairly confident that the team that will be looking at the surveys and paring down some of the potential suggestions would also be looking at safety as it relates to where we are at that time. Things could change. The testing measures are changing. There's some testing that's going to occur in South St. Pete in a couple of weekends. So, we'll probably have a better handle on persons who are asymptomatic versus persons who tested positive. The other comment I just want to bring forward, and it's so good to hear Dr. Carr bring up that idea, because my daughter Kaisha and I were talking about that, because St. Pete High and Lakewood High, they were two of the schools that definitely had their graduations on the field. That was a tradition, and we scaled back on that tradition because of weather. It always rains for whatever reason.
Exactly.
It always rains. And so, Dr. Carr, good idea. That's why I was trying to raise my hand. I was going to bring that up. But for whatever reason, we always get tagged with being soaked. So I just wanted to share that as a reminder. And the other thing is, I think maybe Ms. Vasquez and others may be looking, I don't know, but I've seen some really creative graduation ideas from other places online where they have been able to acknowledge the students for graduation. So if Beth Herendine, if you and your team are getting any of those through Facebook, that's wonderful. If not, I'm happy to send you a link to a couple, just to get some different ideas, because none of us know where we're going to be. It is my prayer and my desire that we will have a better handle on the situation. But keeping in mind, if we do not, I just don't want to elevate the expectations of our students and families, and we may not be able to meet that expectation. The last thing I have, and I did share this comment with staff, I know this will be only for graduates, but we may have some overlap because some students leave and they go immediately into a summer school session for college or what have you. So, if we're all doing virtual, that'll be good because they'll, be on virtual for college. But if we're not doing virtual, then some would, be leaving potentially to start that early semester. And others would not. So some would be able to participate and some would not. And I know that's a choice, but I just wanted to share my thoughts related to graduation. I do support the survey. I'm just thinking out loud about how many variety of responses we may get and what's going to be the matrix to pare those down. And finally, I concur with Bill Dudley, school board member Bill Dudley. I would like to see, what those survey results are, just so when I'm getting a phone call, as I'm sure other school board members are getting phone calls or emails or what have you, at least I would be aware of what some of the recommendations are.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. And to one last comment about the summer, to my knowledge, and I have so much going on, but to my knowledge, all state universities and state colleges are going virtual this summer. So students would not be, if they're staying in state, actually traveling to a university or college, which would reduce that. I think even if students are going out of state, the national picture is very similar. So that could potentially help us with a face-to-face or virtual, either way, because students, I think, are going to be a higher percentage of students who perhaps otherwise would have been off to a summer session will more than likely be here, is what I'm trying to say. Thank you. And so if we can move on, we are getting close to 11 o'clock, time certain for a legislative update. And I know Mrs. Cook, you wanted to take a break, so this might be a good time. I can combine the continuity of instruction with the preparation of the 2020-2021 school year together, if you'd like to take a short break right now and then come back and listen to the legislative issues with Ron LaFace and Megan Fay.
Yeah, do I see anyone who is opposed to that thought? If so, raise your hand. All righty, yeah. All right, so let's take a short break, then we'll come back and do the legislative update. And then we'll go back to the items that we have been discussing and move forward with our agenda from there. All right.
What time would you like us back?
Let's come back at about, let's see, what is it? It's 5 of now, and it's time certain for 5 after. Let's try to come back just a couple minutes before. Let's do like 11:03 if we'll all be back by then.
Okay.
Okay?
And Ms. Cook, this is Beth. The live will continue, so we'll just mute everyone's microphone for the break.
All right, that'll work. Thank you very much. Should we put break up on screen or something? Oh, never mind.
I'm not sure we can do that, but we will work on that. Thank you.
Never mind, that's good.
Megan and Ron, are you there?
I am here.
How you doing, Ron?
Doing well, Dr. Grego. How are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you. Haven't talked to you in a while. Hope all is well in Tallahassee.
It seems to be going about as well as the rest of the state, but we're hanging in there and making the best of it.
It's probably a lot emptier than the last time you and I were there.
Oh, yes.
Thanks for joining us today. I appreciate it.
Okay, we're all going to come back on in about a minute. If you just kind of raise your hand and show me that you're here, we'll get started as soon as I see the board members' hands. Okay, Eileen is here. Hello? So as soon as Nicole and Renee get here.
Mrs. Cook, do you want me to start this just with some comments, and then I'll move to Ron and Megan?
Yes, first of all, I want to let them know I forgot to ask Anne to identify herself when we were going through who's there. So I want to just mention that she's been online the whole time, and then I'll pass it to you.
All right.
Okay, Nicole is here. We're just waiting for Renee, and I don't know whether she can. She was having problems raising her hand before. I'll give her a little bit more time. All righty, let's go ahead. I assume Ms. Flowers is either on or will be soon. So let's go ahead so that we can make sure we stay on schedule with the time certain.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Cook.
Okay.
I know board members and to the staff that's on also, we typically come with a legislative review in the month of, depending on when the session ends. So this is a very different end of session and the beginning of another year, and a lot is up in the air, not only in terms of how we're living, but also with some of the things, and especially the budget. So I want to turn it over and first of all thank both Ron LaFace and Megan Fay for a tremendous legislative session. I want us to go back, and I know I looked at their PowerPoint, well done. And we really did, board members, have a successful session when all was said and done. So I want to thank them for representing us exceedingly well. I also want to thank them for really being very, no matter when I called or text or something like that, they were always available. So, and I think the board members accessed them quite a bit too. So I just want to say thank you for your service to our district and some of the positive things that were passed. And also, as Mrs. Cook reminds me, some of the greatest things in session that did not get passed are some of the greatest accomplishments. So I want to thank you on both sides of that. So without any further ado, maybe we'll go to Ron and Megan first and go through their PowerPoint, Mrs. Cook, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, yes, very definitely, and welcome. We appreciate you taking the time to be with us.
Well, thank you all. First of all, Dr. Grego, I appreciate it. That was a very positive way to frame this. And yeah, I think you're absolutely right in the way that the session turned out. As mentioned, my name is Ron LaFace with Capital City Consulting, and I have my colleague Megan Fay with me. What we plan to do is run through our Pinellas County School Board 2020 legislative wrap-up. And Megan and I will kind of tag team running through some of the slides. And we will, of course, first begin with the budget and mainly kind of focus on the education budget. So if you want to go ahead and move to the next slide, that would be great. I think that what we've, Megan, this is the session.
That's the other PowerPoint. Yep.
Okay.
Let me, Jen, I think that may be the first PowerPoint that I sent. Let me send you the second one.
We boiled this down for a little bit more efficient walkthrough, and I think that Megan can get that over to you. Will you be able to pull up a new document that she sends?
Sure will.
Yeah, we have that because the document that you sent that I think you're referring to was the document that we distributed to the board members. So we have it. It's worth a minute to wait.
Okay. Well, while we're loading that up, I'll give you just some high-level budget overview. First of all, we obviously did pass the 2021 State General Appropriations Act. We did have to go into an extended session because COVID-19 began to create concerns that our initial budget plans were not going to be able to hold. We were running into that point of the session that we decided there were going to be economic downturns, and they did want to go ahead and appropriate additional monies for reserves in case the turned out to be what we're experiencing, and try to prepare the next year's budget the best they could with knowing what they knew back in early March. But overall, the budget, they appropriated $93.2 billion total. That's about $2.24 billion more than the current 19-20 budget. Of that, $35.2 billion is general revenue, and also 22.7 billion of that is for K through 12. What's important, and one of the things that they did do, looking at COVID-19, was they really did increase their amount of reserves. We came out of this session with approximately $3.9 billion in reserve funding. $2.5 billion of that is trust fund, but in the budget stabilization, but they also ended up not allocating $1.3 billion. So that gets us up to the total $3.9 billion in reserves going into the economic issues that we are experiencing. And perfect. So that is the first slide that we talked about. The pieces that I gave you was just, like I said, the general overview, but getting into just some education budget highlights. Obviously, we'll start out with $125,000 appropriations project for Pinellas County School District for the Summer Career Acceleration Program. That was something that we worked with Ms. Dole and Superintendent Grego on, and received a lot of positive support from the Pinellas delegation, and they assisted in getting that funding. We have since been working with the governor's office on providing detail as to why this funding and the summer career acceleration program is something that we think should certainly be continued and supported, particularly as we're having some of the school shutdown issues. Even though this money that is appropriated here would be for the next year's summer program, so it would be the summer program in 2021, not this summer. But we did feel that it was, certainly something that as we're catching up for any achievement gaps that we're going to experience through shutdowns, it's certainly not going to be happen overnight. And this is something that we can use to further help with recovery efforts. One of the main issues that was a lot of focus, I know you all had a lot of interaction around this, was the $500 million teacher salary increase. 400 million of it is for starting teacher salaries, and then 100 million of it is for the other teachers, other instructional personnel. We did have a $40 per student BSA increase, and they did increase workforce education funding by $12 million. Now, those are funding items that we wanted to highlight, but we do want to highlight a cost item. The legislature did believe that the Florida retirement system needed an increase adjustment in order to make sure that its long-term viability is secured. That included not just the state who bore this increase, but also all of the voluntary FRS participants, including universities, local governments, colleges, and school districts. So collectively, statewide, school districts will have an additional $230 million cost increase with the contribution. So, you know, if you look at it in pots of money, certainly the $40 per student BSA increase is going to be offset by an additional cost. So wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of that. The legislature, like they have in years past, only took the increased RLE for new construction. So they did not take the RLE increase from increased property values. So that resulted in an RLE rate rollback from 3.888 to 3.733. And another issue that's not on here that I wanted to highlight is the legislature did appropriate an additional $25 million to mental health categorical, so that the mental health categorical will be funded statewide at $100 million. And then if you want to move to the next slide, I think Megan's going to talk about a couple of bills here.
Thank you, Ron. So House Bill 641, Funds for the Operation of Schools, is a good bill to kind of segue from the budget into legislation, because this bill specifies how school districts are to spend the $500 million that Ron just discussed for teacher salary increases. The bill also repeals the Best and Brightest Teacher Bonus Program, and it gave the Department of Education some additional flexibility to implement the new instructional materials adoption for the BEST standards, which, as you'll remember, was the Governor DeSantis' executive order repealing kind of the rest of Common Core and putting new standards into place. So 641 implements all of those items. Something I just wanted to point out while we're on 641 is an amendment that Senator Montford put onto the bill in the Senate that ultimately did not become part of the legislation, but was very relevant to some of the work that we did specifically with Mr. Hendrick and Dr. Grego during session relating to the CAPE industry certification list. This list essentially dictates which courses can draw down funding, additional FTE funding for the school district when students complete industry certifications. And the DOE, in conjunction with CareerSource, recommended making very large scale changes to this list going forward into next year. Something that we provided feedback on behalf of Pinellas was that the change was happening very quickly. There was a big financial impact to the district, a negative financial impact, and potentially an impact on school grades. And so Senator Montford actually he proposed an amendment that the Senate ultimately adopted, which would have kept the 1920 CAPE list in place for an additional year instead of transitioning to the 2021 CAPE list, which would have kind of mitigated some of the negative impacts to school districts, including Pinellas. After that amendment went onto the bill, the Department of Education actually reached out to his office to offer to, we don't need an amendment, we're just gonna go ahead and we're gonna keep both lists in place for the year. So really a positive outcome, and something that I have to thank Mr. Hendrick and Dr. Grego for making sure they really helped me communicate and helped Ron communicate these concerns to the Department of Education. And so going forward, both the lists will remain in place for an additional year, which should give us some additional flexibility, particularly in light of the other challenges going on with COVID-19. Jen, you can go to the next slide. Thank you. So the next bill I want to touch on quickly is Senate Bill 810, which was a priority of Attorney General Ashley Moody. It essentially cracks down on some of the tobacco and vaping issues that we've had statewide. Most importantly, it raises the age to lawfully purchase tobacco statewide from 18 to 21 years of age for all products. School specifically, it prohibits smoking and vaping by anyone under 21 years of age anywhere on or near school property. And it also cracks down and prohibits the sale of many of the flavored vape products that a lot of people have alleged are targeted to young people and teens. So statewide, there will no longer be a sale of those flavored products.
Okay, thanks, Megan. And I'll pick up
No
here
problem.
for a couple of the other bills. House Bill 7097, which is the annual tax cut package that the legislature has been passing the past few years. This bill originally was targeted to cut about $230 million in state taxes and revenue for the next fiscal year. Once the realities of COVID started to sink in, they reduced the tax reductions or revenue reductions to approximately $50 million. So there was a reduction in order to maintain revenues next year, but they did go ahead and pass this bill. And also the governor has since approved it. It's one of the few bills that the governor has already approved. Two issues that are important to school districts. One of them is it does require sharing of any districts who have a capital school outlay sales surtax. This is your 0.5% sales surtax that you can use for a capital outlay. If you implement it, it does require that to be shared with charters schools proportionately based on enrollment for future sales surtaxes. So if the district does intend to do one of these sales surtaxes in the future, the law would require that to be shared with charter schools, but which has not really been an issue in Pinellas in the past. The other issue that it has is our annual 3-day back to school tax holiday was authorized in the bill, and that will be August 7th through the 9th. And you can move to this next page, please. Senate Bill 434 is a bill titled Designation of School Grades by Senator Montford. This is a positive bill that we supported. It would modify the high school acceleration component of school grading model to add students who complete career certificate dual enrollment courses that meet certain requirements, mainly 300 or more clock hours. There's about, I think it's 287 career certificate dual enrollment courses that meet that 300-hour threshold. And the State Board of Education is going to go through those 287 and designate which ones of completion of which can be used to assist schools in their school grades. So it's something that we will certainly keep our eye on and make sure that those career certificate dual enrollment courses are available to our students. The next bill is also a positive bill. Healthcare for Children by Representative Andrade. You're probably aware, but currently we are allowed to take a certified public expenditure and draw down federal funds when we provide school-based health services to certain students who are also eligible for Florida Medicaid. In the past, the number of students that we've been able to draw the federal funds down has been limited because you've had to have certain requirements. They needed to be in certain programs as well as have an IEP or IFSP. Those provisions or those criteria that made the population smaller that we could draw down federal funds were removed in this bill. So this bill actually allows us to provide or at least take credit and draw down federal funds on essentially all of the school-based health services that we are providing to students who are eligible for Medicaid. So it's an opportunity to draw down more federal funds. Also, the next bill, Senate Bill 70, is a bill that provides us with an option to implement panic alarms in our public schools. We certainly have this option available to us today, but what this bill would do is set up a state basically system that districts could then opt into basically at no cost to the district. The state would basically secure a vendor to provide this service. And then beginning in the 2021-22 school year, districts who wanted to implement the interoperable mobile panic alarm system would be able to do that without a cost to the district. You can go ahead and move to the next slide. House Bill 7067, K through 12 education scholarships by Representative Sullivan, is kind of the annual empowerment scholarship expansion bill. It moved the eligibility threshold for households that's currently at 260% of the federal poverty level to 300%. So that is an expansion of the eligibility for empowerment scholarships. It also provides an annual increase for as of 1% to the cap of the number of students that can be served. I will point out that this bill does implement a new accountability provision that we feel is important and needed, and does require private schools to administer either a norm reference or the statewide assessment to students who are at the private school but are there using the Empowerment Scholarship. There is one other provision in this bill that's not on these bullets that I did want to also point out for the district, is that the bill also provides an add-on FTE bonus funding for dual enrollments for certain courses, or if a student receives an associate degree at a certain GPA, depending on the course or the type of school that the dual enrollment is offered in, or if they certainly receive the associate's degree with a certain GPA, you would get an additional bonus funding on top of the FTE. So that is an opportunity to draw down additional funds through the FEFP. You can move on to the next bill. So House Bill 7079 was a Department of Education package by Representative Alupas. This bill did not pass, but it was a bill that we spent a significant amount of time on. And since it was a Department of Education proposal, we expect it to be back. But we wanted to highlight the two issues that we worked with the Department of the Legislature on. The first one would have made changes to the use of the reading instructional categorical. This provision would have actually changed the definition of evidence-based. So if you're using your reading categorical funds to purchase evidence-based materials, there currently is a definition of what evidence-based means. It's kind of a federal definition, but it includes all sorts of materials that are founded in research. But the definition that was proposed in this bill would have really narrowed the types of materials that qualified for use of your reading categorical. We kind of viewed that as a potential hidden cost to the district, because if we were using materials, whether it be supplemental or intervention materials that were evidence-based, but didn't meet this new stricter definition of evidence-based, then we would have to go through, purchase new materials and programs to meet the more stringent definition. And we were concerned about how that would interplay, particularly with the new reading interventions that are coming with the new Florida Best standards. The second issue was one that would put schools that experienced a single D into turnaround rather than a double D. This was an issue that caused some concern, because there are situations where school could slip into a single D, but through work by the district and by the principal and the school is quickly brought out of the D and increased even to B or even an A in future years. And there are some instances where you could get a single D because of boundary changes or issues outside of what's really going on in the school. So there was concern about putting single Ds into turnaround because once you put a school into turnaround, you certainly have personnel changes and things that come along with that. So kind of school district across the state, everybody was very concerned about that. And like I said, this bill ultimately did not make it across the finish line, but we may see some of these ideas again in the future. The next bill is Senate Bill 1220. You'll see it's titled K through 12 scholarship programs. That's because this bill became the Senate version of the scholarship bill that I previously discussed by Chair Sullivan. But the bill originally was a professional development bill. And it was a professional development bill drafted by Chairman Diaz, who's the Senate Education Chairman. And it had a lot of provisions in it that we thought were important to talk about because we believe that Senator Diaz will certainly propose a similar professional development bill next year, and it might get a little bit more attention. But the original professional development bill had a provision that did cause the districts a little concern about teachers being able to self-direct a portion of their professional development and receive funds from the district in order to do that. And there was some concern about how that would impact the district-wide professional development opportunities that we offer. But the bill also had a new pilot program in there called Professional Education Excellence Resources, or PEER pilot program, that allowed for certain districts to extend the time for professional development, more teacher collaboration, as well as leadership opportunities. And because Pinellas and Dr. Grego were one of the people that came to the legislature to talk about the importance of professional development, Pinellas was included in the 3 districts that were allowed in the pilot. And there was intending to be some additional funding for the districts as it relates to professional development that did participate. Like I said, ultimately, all of the professional development components were wiped out and replaced with the empowerment scholarship language, but we do expect these issues to be back in the future. Go ahead and switch to the next slide if you wouldn't mind. Another bill that did not pass, House Bill 157, Senate Bill 1216, which was the annual term limits for school board members proposal, which would have put a referendum on the 2020 ballot applying 8-year term limits to school district members. Probably heard a lot of discussion or publicity around this bill this year, and that particularly came from the House of Representatives. They believed that there was a lot more will to put this referendum on the ballot to establish school board term limits in the Senate than was actually there. And so ultimately, as we moved through session, the Senate showed that they really had no interest in moving this proposal forward, and it fizzled out again. Megan, you want to take over 1013?
Sure. Okay. So House Bill 1013, early learning, was a Department of Education priority bill. Also, I would say a passion project of Representative Grahl. So the bill had a wide variety of changes to the early learning system in Florida. One of the big ones to point out was something that our VPK providers have been asking for a number of years, which is to include learning gains in the statutory calculation of their readiness rate, and to also factor in-person assessments rather than just the Flickers score that the student gets when they're entering kindergarten. The other big thing to point out was that the bill proposed coordinated assessments, which would be expanded from just students who are leaving VPK and going into kindergarten, but all through first, second, and third grade, so that the department would have and school districts would have a more holistic look at early learning and early literacy and math skills kind of across the spectrum from VPK through grade 3, so they can sort of see how students are progressing. So this bill ultimately did not pass, kind of got bogged down in the end of session with the introduction of discussion around COVID and coronavirus and school closures. And it did not pass, but I do expect that we'll see it again next year just because it was a priority of the department. And then one other piece of legislation that also didn't pass, it's not on the slide here, but I just wanted to bring up at the end, was the school safety legislation. So House and Senate both had a committee bill relating to school safety. They were somewhat different. There were a lot of provisions that either existed only in the House bill or only in the Senate bill. There were some positive changes that the bill clarified. It gave more guidance around the number of active shooter drills that school districts and schools needed to do each semester in each school year. It also it gave more clarity for school safety officers where they have jurisdiction and where they don't, including charter school campuses. But one of the provisions that was included in the House version of the bill gave the Commissioner of Education additional oversight over school district superintendent salaries and gave him additional authority to withhold superintendent salaries for a number of non-compliance issues, but also non-compliance issues at charter schools. And ultimately, the Senate was not willing to take those provisions in the bill. The bill ended up dying kind of in between passes between the House and the Senate on the last day of the session. So I do expect that we'll probably see a school safety bill next year refiled in each chamber, but we'll stay tuned to see which provisions make it into it and which ones don't. But thank you. That's kind of our recap of legislation that did not pass and did pass. And Ron and I are happy to take any questions you guys might have.
Yeah, and real quick, right before Dr. Grego, if it's okay, before we move into questions, just to kind of real quick say, where do we go from here? I do want to point out that even though the session ended quite a little while ago, the legislature still has not begun really sending many bills to the governor other than a handful that they wanted to go ahead and approve, like the tax cut package. And the budget is still being held because everybody is trying to figure out what the actual impact of COVID-19 and these shutdowns will have on the state budget. We expect to get the March revenue collections in sometime this week, even though March only had about 2 weeks of impact. And then certainly in the latter part of May, we will get April, and then June, we will get May, which are going to be the big impact months. And the legislature will try to figure out, you know, how far they're able to get along using the reserves. I will say that you probably might have read a little bit where Moody's did a stress test on the state of Florida and projected that COVID-19 would have an $8 to $10 billion impact on the state. That includes a reduction in revenues, but also an increased cost, like we expect to experience with increased Medicaid enrollees and so forth. But what that also doesn't take into account, I just want everybody to have this in their context, is, you know, we have a little bit north of $4 billion in state reserves. We actually had, you know, the $3.9 billion that the legislature set aside, and then January and February came in about $100 million over estimates. So we have that sitting in state revenue. Also expecting under the CARES Act for the state to receive somewhere around $4 billion in budget stabilization funds. So that puts us up around, you know, that $8+ billion number. And then also there are some changes being made in the Medicaid program, which frees up about $1.2 billion for the state of Florida in increased federal share to help offset some of these Medicaid numbers. So you're already talking about, you know, $9+ billion available to handle what Moody's says is an $8 to $10 billion issue. So that's time's going to tell how all of those pieces come into play. We will continue to keep you guys apprised as these numbers become clear. We are also working with Dr. Grego, and I'm sure that issue has come up, but there is additional funding coming directly to K-12 education from the CARES Act. Initially, the governor has a fund of the governor's emergency fund, which is about $173 million for Florida. The commissioner and the governor are intending to focus that on K-12, and I know Dr. Grego has been working with the Superintendents Association to list out kind of statewide initiatives related to achievement gap and student recovery that some of those funds could be focused on. And then certainly there's a second larger pot of $770 million for K-12 education, which 90% of it is going to go out to districts to help cover the costs for all that you have done for COVID response, distance learning, meals, all of the costs that you have there. And then of the funds kept back, most of those funds, which is about $77 million, is supposed to also go out to grants or programs that the department continues to push. So with that, just wanted to kind of give you that. Where do we go from here? You know, it's kind of every day, one day at a time, and we'll continue to keep you guys informed of anything that we're seeing or hearing up here in Tallahassee.
Very good. We do appreciate all the work you're doing for us. And it was very good to see you when we were in Tallahassee. And Megan, I want to, again, thank you for the time that you took with us. We heard very positive things as we went from our delegation, one person to the next, about the work that you're doing. And so we really appreciate you both working so hard on behalf of Pinellas. I am not seeing any comments or questions. Do any of the board members have comments that they'd like to make? Other than it's very apparent we're going to have to tighten our belts even a little bit more with the budget and all the uncertainty with that. But all in all, it seems like it was a fairly successful session. And, you know, we'll wait and see what the rest of it has to bring. Dr. Grego, do you have any comments?
No, I just want to thank for a very comprehensive review. I know that we could have dove into any one of these for a great length of time, but I think the overriding issue is that there was some, you know, for me, the early childhood bill not moving forward was probably believe my biggest disappointment or surprise, because it was such a priority, but that's the way the session ended. it ended with a lot of difficulty with the COVID-19 issue and with what was happening. So it's understandable. We'll pick it up, but all in all, I think there were a lot more positives than not, and a lot of things that were not passed that I think were somewhat damaging to our system. So we have a lot of change ahead, but I can tell you that I think as a district, we were asked to, I always look at, if you're not at the table, you're not going to eat. And we were asked as a school district to continually provide our input, and at least felt like we were really listened to. There was a different sort of flavor in Tallahassee this year in terms of moving things forward. So again, thank you to Ron and Megan. If there's no other questions, I know that we have Kevin Smith. If there's anything you want to add to this from the budget, and especially Ron, you gave a really, that was going to be my initial question for this board is, so where do we go from here budgetarily? And thank you. I thought that was very comprehensive. But Kevin, do you have anything in reference to your meetings with the finance officers throughout the state on a regular basis that you want to add to that for the board?
No, thank you, Dr. Grego. Ron did a really good job giving an overview of the budget statewide, and his message to us that this budget is a good budget, but it can change. We have revenue estimates that'll be coming in. Yesterday was the sales tax due date for businesses and entities to file their sales tax returns for the state of Florida. So we'll have some early indication of what impact is going to be on the statewide revenue. Moody's estimates about 12%, as Ron mentioned, statewide. But we don't know at this point. We don't know what might happen. There may be a special session. The budget has not been signed by the governor yet. There are some things in the budget which are very positive, which is a starting teacher's salary. But if we wind up seeing some significant erosion in statewide revenue, and they have a proration next year, as sometimes happens in the third quarter, which would be around December, we could have a significant reduction in funding at that point, and we will have raised our teacher salaries. We have to be very diligent in watching the dollars that we spend. Hopefully we'll have some early indications, as Ron mentioned, as the revenue reports come in over the next couple of months. We'll have some indications to what the impact will be. Hopefully the reserves will be enough to absorb that. But it's incumbent upon us to watch everything, every dime that we spend, and make certain that we're as judicious as possible in what we're spending and how we budget for next year. Other than that, Ron, you did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Cook, anything else in closing, or Jennifer,
no.
Lori, do we have anything else?
No, I'm not seeing any hands. I do believe, if I can veer off slightly, the conversations that we had with our legislators prior to the session starting. You know how we used to have a legislative breakfast, and now we have a legislative briefing. I do think that is having an impact, because people are seeing who is the contact person, who do I go to get information regarding this. And I think it has opened up the lines of communication a whole lot better than what has happened in the past. So I would hope that when we consider what we're going to be doing in the future, that would be one of the things that we would think about. Is that something we want to continue? And if so, how do we even make it more beneficial?
That's a good point.
I see no other hands. So thank you both very much for taking the time to be here. And Jennifer Dahl has done a lot of work with them, and I want to thank her for the work that she has done and making sure that we get the reports of that type of thing as well.
Yeah, thank you, Ron. Thank you, Megan. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure working with you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Mrs. Cook, if you would like, I will combine the remainder of the continuity and the preparation and just kind of dovetail one into the other.
Perfect.
And I think it'll go very smoothly. So with that, board members, I want to call upon staff members just to bring an update from last Tuesday's board meeting, where each of these individuals and each of these topics were discussed, but just a status report. And I'll start out with the digital instruction. Mr. Hendrick, and if he's online, which I'm sure he is, he could bring the board an update.
Yes, Dr. Grego. Good morning again. So board members, we continue obviously with digital learning, and we're certainly past that first layer of shock and overwhelming from the first couple of weeks for teachers and families, and we're settling into routines. We continue to encourage creativity and to meet the needs of individual students in classrooms. Our support for teachers continues with open office hours and specific trainings to get them as well developed as possible to meet the needs of our students. We have continued weekly communication with teachers through videos. In fact, we just sent out this morning our most recent communication that included grading and how grading will be done in the fourth quarter from exams, the EOC exams that were canceled, and meeting the needs of all students, you know, if their technology is a problem or accommodations and all of those things. So we did send out that information. It'll also be posted, or if it's not already, on the family portion of our website, that we continue to post all of those documents around grading. One of the important things is that we're doing once you get past this, let's set this up and get it rolling, is how do we know students are learning? So we continue to set up processes for monitoring, and those have evolved. But one of the ways, of course, is just simply using the programs that students are familiar with digitally, such as iStation, iReady, Dreambox, Reading Plus, and others. And we continue to monitor those, and our numbers as we do so continue to look good. We can track how many students are logging in, the types of work that they're doing, the grade level progress that they're making. And we've been very impressed, for example, that the number of students logging into Dreambox, which is one of our elementary math programs, has remained consistent. It was 26,000 students the first week that we started. It was 24,000 students the next week. It was 25,000 students this last week. So those types of indicators show us that students and families are continuing with regular engagement. Yes, we have attendance that shows us we continue to engage, but the fact that students are doing the work is important as well. As we plan out the rest of this school year and start to look at the summer and even into the first quarter of next school year, one of the important parts to remember is that by design, we try to cover all of the grade level standards in the first 3 quarters of the school year. We then go into spring break, and as we come back in late March and April, we sort of refine those top level standards as students get ready for state assessments. And so in most of our courses, we taught face-to-face all of the standards that students should be exposed to this year. And we are now reinforcing those digitally. We'll try to reinforce those again this summer in whatever means we can. And we'll do so to a certain extent at the start of next school year. But we feel very strongly at most grade levels and in most courses that students have been exposed, particularly in English language arts and mathematics, to the standards that they should know from rising to one grade level to the next. Now, obviously, the level of reinforcement during digital instruction is different than face-to-face, and so we continue to take on those challenges, but we feel good about where we are as a school district and the content that our students are receiving. Looking into the next part of instruction in this transition, as Dr. Grego said, into what are we planning for the future, we continue to plan for Summer Bridge in a variety of ways. Obviously, right now, we don't have direction from the state about what is allowable or our cities and county in terms of face-to-face instruction, but we're planning multiple pathways for the summer, everything from all virtual to traditional Summer Bridge face-to-face, but more likely sort of smaller Summer Bridge pockets where we see students engage with teachers, meeting CDC guidelines at a much smaller level than what we've done before. So think about perhaps 8 students with 1 teacher working in small groups for multiple sessions. As those plans are finalized and we get to know more about what we're able to do this summer, as well as the funding that's available that Mr. Face mentioned coming down from the state, we'll be able to share all of those plans. And board members, for your own minds, we anticipate that probably the week of May 4th, being able to concretely release some of those plans. So that gives you an update on how we're doing in digital learning and where we're moving as we prepare for next school year and beyond when it comes to instruction.
Very good,
thank you, Mr. Hendrick. Yeah. We could move on, or if there's any questions, just raise your hand, board members, but move on very quickly to digital distribution, device distribution. Lori Matway and Tom Lechner, please.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Grego. And board members, as I updated you last Tuesday during the board meeting, we are still continuing our regional distribution sites twice a week, 2 times per day. We have distributed over 25,000 devices as well as the Wi-Fi hotspots. And again, the numbers are starting to dwindle down, and we're noticing more of an uptick in the tech help tickets, specifically with students struggling probably with their own abilities to navigate the systems. And our tech staff, I have to thank Tom Lechner, has been absolutely outstanding, providing supports to families, students, and staff as they struggle with engaging in the digital platform. Tom Lechner, do you have anything to add?
Yes, good morning, school board and Dr. Grego and staff. Yes, the TIS technicians at all levels have been very involved in setting up the devices so that when the students got home that they could continue their education online. Now, as we anticipated, we're having some of the devices that need attention, and we have a very good process to whereby the schools notify the parent of the date, time, and location of our distribution centers, and the parents would bring those devices to the distribution centers, and we have technology technicians at the sites that will diagnose and repair immediately if possible. If not, we give them another device so they're not without, and then we take that device and work on it a little bit longer. Process seems to be going very, very well, and not seeing a lot of them coming back, but like I indicated, as we anticipated, we do have some. We're also there to meet the needs of the staff. So the staff, if they have hardware issues, they can come to one of those 5 same distribution sites so our technicians can assist them. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay. Mr. Dudley has a question. Bill? Maybe not. Are you there, Bill?
Yeah, there I am.
There you go.
You called on me. I thought I was ready to go. I forgot to hit the microphone. We still have devices available. Is that not correct?
That's correct.
Okay. There was an occasion, and again, I'm speaking because, you know, my wife has been doing this digital learning, and she had a student that she was having hadn't done any work, and she said he's a pretty conscientious kid and couldn't understand, so she actually called him, and he was on his own computer at home. He has a Mac, and he was doing his work, but for somehow it wasn't working, and so a student like that now, can he how does he go about getting a PC? You said contact the schools. Is there anybody at the schools?
Yes, sir. They would contact the school, and school staff are prepared to take that request, get it to their child study team, and then at that time, give that parent an appointment, a date and location where they can go and pick up a device.
Okay, so they would contact the school, and the school is the one that works all that out, where to go and all that, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, all the phone lines in the schools are forwarded to a remote location, but when you call the school, it's as if you're actually calling the school. Also, I think that in that particular case, a tech support would be helpful, Tom, because we have many other students using a Mac, and so it's not prohibited to use Mac. So it might just be a discussion that we could have with a tech support person and maybe solve that easier remotely.
Well, I was going to say, if that's the case, would he call the county to get the tech support?
Yes, the number's been published, the 588-6060, the parents call, and our tech help staff is capable and willing to assist the best that we can. There's a lot of challenges, as you well know, with this online curriculum or environment, and their ISP provider, their firewall or router or a modem, what device they're using. There's a lot of variables.
Okay, right.
Our tech help staff is prepared to help them and assist them in any way they can.
Okay, that's good. And the last thing I wanted to ask Kevin, You said the grading, whatever, that's going out today. Is that going to email? How's that? How are you distributing that?
Yes, Mr. Dudley, we sent out an email to all teachers today with about a 4-page document.
Okay.
That contains just different intricacies. We also have some videos for the teachers. The document is up on our parent portion of the website now, and Dr. Grego and I filmed a message for parents that'll go out via email later tonight.
Okay, good. That's all I wanted to know. My teacher's not here, so I will have that. Okay, thank you very much. And just as an added, I really do appreciate what Tom has done. What an awesome job when you consider all this, got dumped on you at the last minute, and your staff and everybody. I think you have done very, very better than credible. It's incredible job. And I want to thank you personally. And I know you take it to heart being a former educator, and I know you got the best interests of the kids at heart. And I want to thank Kevin too for his leadership. And I can always get a good answer when I talk to Kevin. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I see
So
no
the
other.
other-
Yeah,
okay.
go ahead. I see nothing else. Let's move on.
The other topic, I think if Lori Matway's still there, is I've had several focus meetings with principals, even some with our Teacher of the Year finalists and so forth. And we collectively continue to talk about attendance incentives, promotions, celebrations, but also I want Lori to talk a little bit about how we're incentivizing not only that students are on, but how they're performing. And principals have asked for this, and I'm very happy how we've responded. Ms. Matway?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Grego. Board members, as mentioned, attendance continues to be monitored, even in the virtual setting, and school-based child study teams continue to review their data and make adjustments based on the performance of their students. But as we reached out to our regional social workers for attendance, they were excited to develop some suggestions, and these are strictly suggestions for schools to use to engage and celebrate students as they are performing in this digital platform. Some of these that I'm going to share with you are initiatives that cost absolutely nothing, but a little time and a little effort to celebrate our students. For example, to do a perfect attendance blast. For students in classes who have had perfect attendance for the week, they're able to share out the celebration with the school-wide messaging, and also letting parents know via phone calls and emails of how impressed they are with the students and how they're staying engaged in learning. Others that have celebrated with pictures with pals, students are reading to their own pets and posting pictures of that and how they're staying engaged, or posting pictures with family members as they read and celebrate learning. They are considering building engagement time for schools in digital learning, specifically allocated to direct communication with students and families. Time would be dedicated to making phone calls, individual meetings with parents and staff. We're engaging struggling students personally to focus on relationship building and creating connections. We know during this time, people are feeling isolated, so just that little message from their teacher, their administrator, a school staff member calling and reaching out and letting them know that they're appreciated and that they are seeing the good work. And we have many, several pages of initiatives to share with staff, and they're sharing their good ideas with us, and we're getting the word out to all of our schools of how they can celebrate students. We will continue to monitor and celebrate in the ways that we have done through perfect attendance, and how students have stayed engaged even though it's not face-to-face, and allowing our students to still be celebrated, and parents to know that we are monitoring and assisting if there are any barriers to students' participation.
Thank you. Thank you, Lori. What's not on here, I think this is an appropriate place to insert it, is that staff and I, we were discussing, I want to thank Louis Brinson because he kind of came up with this idea over the weekend a little bit and tapped my thinking too on it, but that is of maybe taking a breather and having, especially at the elementary level, and I know Mr. Hendrick's staff is working on a student parent conference and see, so how's the student doing? So we're working on, this is all new, a digital conference, a remote conference where we may not hit everybody, but I think if we can hit the right people, we may target some students. Elementary may look different than middle and high school, but I think that's going to be needed as we all of a sudden learn that we'll be at this for the rest of the school year. Typically, we do have a spring conference, and we're going to try to do it. I don't know how, we're going to give it a shot. So the last topic, Mr. Herbeck, if we could combine food distribution and cleaning protocols together, I'd appreciate it.
If I could interrupt you first, Dr. Carr has her hand raised.
Thank you. Sorry.
I just had a question, and thank you, Ms. Matway. I think the counselors and social workers have been outstanding. I know we've gotten calls with the check-in, and then also the amazing things teachers have been doing. I heard of one of our kindergarten teachers, I think she's at 74th Street, doing a one-on-one reading time, even with some of her students, which I just thought was remarkable. And I love the idea of the conferences being virtual. I just had a question about some of our clubs or activities. I know that's a stretch and maybe it's not a possibility, but in terms of maintaining some sort of social connection, which is kind of the struggle right now, if any of our, our SR and R or some of our other clubs, I know some clubs might not meet because of the sensitive nature of their meeting, or they're looking into their homes on the Zoom, or different things and concerns on privacy, but are any of our clubs or activities able to meet virtually, or are there any, like class meetings? I know the seniors are doing some things with planning, but just sort of to promote that social piece. So.
Ms. Carter, that's an absolutely perfect, wonderful question. We were addressing and have addressed that early on because I think it's so important to try to keep these clubs together where appropriate. Mr. Hendrick, I know you work with the sponsors, and I know especially at our high schools, and Dr. Vasquez also, that some of these clubs are meeting with Microsoft Teams, where the sponsor is available. They're calling those meetings and they're having those. Mr. Hendrick or Dr. Vasquez, if you're there, if you would care to comment on that.
Yes, Dr. Grego, we did put out instructions to principals on how those meetings could continue. Teachers or sponsors can do those through Microsoft Teams, even if the students aren't assigned to them in regular classes. We gave instructions on how to do that, and I do know that many schools are doing those meetings. I can't certainly verify that all are, or every club is meeting, but it is available, and we've provided instructions on how to do that. And we've encouraged them to do that for the reasons you said, Dr. Carr.
Okay, I see no other hands, Dr. Grego.
Okay, great suggestion. Food distribution and cleaning protocols, Mr. Herbeck.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Grego and board members. I know that we gave you a brief update at the board meeting the other day, but just again as a reminder and a little bit of an update, right now we are serving food at 22 different sites. Each of those sites right now is averaging around 180 to 190 children that we are distributing food to at each of those sites. And the big change that we made kind of transitioned last week, and this week will be the first full week of it, is that we're only distributing food once a week now. And we're doing that to not only cut down the amount of interaction that our staff has with the public, but it also allows our families to be able to observe the safer at home order a little bit closer and be able to actually stay at home and not have to wander from the house so much. So this week, and we distribute food now on Wednesdays, and we do distribute food for 6 meals. And so it covers 6 days. And this week we are also transitioning away from all the cold type of food, the sandwiches and things like that. And we're starting to incorporate several more heat up type meals. If you want to think of them as kind of TV dinner type of things, we're transitioning to that. So we're going to see if any of these changes impact the number of families we serve. We have a feeling that when word gets out that the hot meals will be available to reheat, that our distribution numbers may go up a little bit. We also, and I want to thank Pinellas County, we reached out to them about 2 weeks ago and we asked them if there were volunteer groups out there who could help us pass out the food. The county did post our request on their volunteer request hotline, and we've had several volunteers, both organizations and individual people, also come up. And what it really allows us to do is our food service workers then get to concentrate on what's going on in the kitchen. They get to concentrate on making the food and packaging it. And those volunteers are out actually handing it to the families as they pull through. On the maintenance side, we've been heavily involved with some conference calls with the Council of Greater City Schools. There's about 20 districts around the country that have been involved with those conference calls. And we've been sharing our plans that how we've cleaned the schools up to now and then how we're going to move forward. And there's really two things that I think we've learned from that. Number one, the protocols that we put in to clean our schools just shortly after closure really are strongly in line with what other districts are doing. So we're really happy to have discovered that. But the second thing that we're discovering is that everybody is working through the issue of what are we going to do when school reopens and how are we going to clean throughout the day. Cleaning at night is a pretty, I won't say it's easy, but it's an easier endeavor than cleaning throughout the day. So the council is working with us on that. We also here in Pinellas have reached out to the Department of Health. We've also reached out to some medical professionals, and I know we have two infectious disease experts from Baycare that will be helping us develop our plan specifically for Pinellas County. We'll develop that plan, we'll have those experts review it, and then what we'll do is try to make sure that, that our guidelines, what we develop, are in line with what the council has. And one other benefit of being a member of the Council of Greater City Schools is that they have enlisted the assistance of a doctor from University of California, San Diego, who actually specializes in school health and school cleanings. I wasn't even sure that a person like that existed, but apparently there's one guy at least out there in the country who has it. And then the council is also going to reach out and work with the CDC in making sure that whatever guidelines we develop are going to meet the needs of all of the school districts. So that's basically where we are. Again, the cleaning protocol, this is a quick recap. The cleaning protocol we put in was effective. It's in line with best practices around the country. And we're working closely with several organizations and people to try to make sure that we have good protocols in place to make sure that our students and staff are safe when they return, and to kind of ease the mind of parents as well, knowing that their schools are safe for their children.
Questions before I dovetail into the future? So where do we go from here?
I see no hands, so we can move to the next one.
Okay, Jennifer, if you could put up that table of contents. But to the board members, I want you to know that staff and I have been working diligently to maybe address the concerns before they become concerns as best we could. And as you see on the screen here, this extended district plan. So the same type of planning that went into going into the going digitally. Now we're saying, okay, so what's our extended district plan? As we just learned last weekend, that we'll be closing schools remotely. We'll be looking at the summer potentially with a lot of unknowns and the unknowns of starting the school year. So I again want to thank staff, specifically Jennifer, for setting up this structure. I'm not going to go through it, but I am going to say that there are certain components. Mr. Hendrick started to talk about one that we feel like are extremely necessary. I think I talked to the board briefly about this. I know that Dr. Carr and I have had some offline conversations about a cross-agency advisory team of medical experts. I was very successful at reaching out to Mr. Tommy and Zena, who's the president of Baycare, and Dr. Cho also, who both believe this is a great idea for Pinellas County. Obviously, we're going to be following all of the CDC and everyone else, but the day in the life of an elementary, day in the life of a middle, day in the life of a high school student, post-secondary student, what extra precautions can we have? I also have a few recommended physicians from Johns Hopkins, All Children's Hospital, and that I'll be reaching out to. As you know, these individuals are extremely busy, but they also are very willing to work with our school districts. So that's going to be something that we're going to be meeting them and running through, as Mr. Herbig said, but also bringing them to some of our schools and taking a look at some of our practices, all to increase the trust factor and also the educational factor of ourselves and the experts that are out there. In addition to that, we're going to be, as Mr. Hendrick pointed out, we are already out on the grades and grading policies, retentions and promotions procedures. I can go through it, but you don't realize all the things that have to happen to close a school when you're live, and that is collection of textbooks, cleaning out of lockers, collection of band instruments, uniforms, other things, transitions, ESE IEPs from 5th grade to 6th grade, 8th grade to 9th grade, the celebrations and recognitions that we've already talked about. Mr. Hunt is working emphatically about continuing on to try to have students secure industry certifications for those that can be tested now and through the summertime. So, and the big one is our summer bridge program. We're looking at it as a 3-tiered model, not knowing exactly what it's going to look like and what we're going to be allowed to do. We want to, I think potentially we're looking at the possibility of opening every elementary school, but the whole notion about whether we could even be socially acceptable and safe to do that is something that's still within another month away. So I just wanted the board to know, as you can see from this outline, from this table of contents, that we've broken up into these task forces, and the individuals who are chairing these issues are involving the end user, involving a lot of people in our district. They're not making decisions in isolation. And it's an interesting way of work because it's work that we don't know all of the variables to make good decisions, but we're making the best decisions we can with a degree of flexibility as we go through it. So my purpose in putting it on the agenda isn't that the work we're doing is just next week and the week after. It truly is the next 6 to 8 months. As Ron mentioned, there is a CARES package, a discretionary for the commissioner, $174 million. And I want to thank our district and leaders of our district for getting online one evening at 8:30, not quarter to 9 o'clock, to quarter to 9 one evening when we found out about it, and we needed to have something from the superintendents the next day. And it was a great plan from Pinellas County that looked at the academic slide of some of our most needy and students in some of the areas of poverty that we needed to address. Also assessing where students are coming back to school, and also depending upon what we can do in the summertime, allowing us to truly have an impact on our most needy students in the summertime. So that 174 million hopefully will, if we are able to do that, will pay for some of the plans. It will pay for some of the plans of the entire state, but certainly our district, in trying to onboard students in a meaningful way, in an academic way over the summer. So without going into any great detail, you could see the various topics that we're discussing. this format is wonderful because I can add to it or subtract to it. I mean, some of these things, as was mentioned with grading and other things have already been accomplished, but they're still in great detail in the plan. So it's added and subtracted to. Any questions or any comments from staff that I might have left off this topic?
Looks like you have explained it very well. I see no hands.
That concludes all of our comments, Mrs. Cook, in terms of legislative and the preparing for the 2021 school year, and just an update to the board.
Yeah. Well, if anybody thinks that because we're going virtually that things have slowed down, or that we're not putting the emphasis on education, or that there's going to be such a huge, slide back with students, if they're seeing what you have presented and how hard our staff has been working, I think they have to know that not only are we continuing with the same emphasis and the same seriousness about the education, but you're working double time. And I'm so very, very proud of our staff and how they have stepped up to the plate and moved forward, and they're making it happen for students. And they've not ever lost focus on the fact that our students need to learn every single day. And I really, really, truly appreciate that. And I'm sure that there are many other board members, if not all of them, that feel the same way. We're going to move now into leadership discussion. And if you don't mind, we'll take the code of conduct first, and then we'll go to the board member items. So Dr. Grego, do you want to lead into that, or should we go straight? Okay.
No, it's just a really quick update to the board. Well, I have two other real quick items. First of all, I do want to extend and a reminder, but also publicly to this board and others, tomorrow is Administrative Professional Day, and I could say to you, whether we're remote or not, I mean, I know firsthand, Kathy and Wendy make me look a whole lot better than I ever deserve. But just the work that our administrative professionals do every day in our district, at the school level, at the district level, is just phenomenal. And I miss seeing them, and I know that they do so much for us. I'm not just doing that. I think Kathy's online, so I hope you are. I hope you're listening to this. So I just want to say thank you to all of the administrative professionals, and that is tomorrow. The other thing I want to ask the board's permission, I think the first week in May is a Teacher Appreciation Week. And if the board would like, our school and our principals have a lot of things that they're doing, and the Teacher Appreciation Week is a very school-based thing. But if the board wants, I would like to maybe draft a letter, not only from me as I typically do, but I think given the circumstance, it would be nice to get an electronic signature of all 7 board members and myself, and send it to every teacher in our district, and just to demonstrate a high level of appreciation, especially during these times. And we can wordsmith it and share it with the board. And if you'd so like, Mrs. Cook, that would be a suggestion, or maybe some other suggestion. But I think given this year, it'd be nice to do a special recognition to our teachers.
What are board members' thoughts on that item? Am I seeing yes? I'm not seeing any hands go up. Are the board members still here? Maybe that's the first question we should ask. Okay, Eileen. Oh, now the hands are going up. Look at that. There you go. Mrs. Long?
I think that's a wonderful idea. I'm for it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Dudley? Turn on your microphone.
I keep forgetting that. Yes.
Okay. All righty. Well, I'm not hearing anybody say no, so I think that's a good idea. So we can
I'll draft that, and then I'll get with Ann and get your signatures.
Okay. Very good.
And then the last thing, I'm going to ask Mr. Kennedy, Ward Kennedy, who has spearheaded the Student Code of Conduct, to just bring the board a quick update as we prepare for the following school year. Mr. Kennedy?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Grego. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to provide just a brief update regarding the Code of Student Conduct. I want to start by first thanking the board for your approval last week of the changes pertaining to threats and the policy for vaping. As we discussed in the workshop a while back, both those changes will be important, especially when we return to a brick and mortar learning environment. I'd also like to thank Jennifer Dull, Webmaster Brian Jones, and Tabitha Murphy for getting those changes posted on the current online version of the code. So board members, recommended changes to the code usually come from three sources: statutory requirements, board directed concerns, and input from stakeholders. The first two are self-explanatory, so I want to focus on the third item, stakeholder input. Those stakeholders send suggestions and recommendations to us throughout the course of the year. The formal process begins in December of each year. At that time, I ask schools to begin to obtain input from students, staff, and support organizations like PTA and SAC. Schools through the months of January and February then collect suggestions. The feedback is forwarded to our office and compiled in preparation for later discussion at the annual revision committee meeting in March. This year was no exception. However, I will say that the number of suggestions submitted were well below the average number of suggestions submitted in previous years. I attribute the minimal suggestions by stakeholders this year to that of the work of the board by dealing with concerns in a timely manner and staying ahead of issues such as evidenced by the recent changes you approved. The few items that were submitted this year were discussed by a cross-functional committee, including district staff, school administration, PCTA, PESPA, parents, and students, and that meeting was held on March 10th. Most of that discussion just centered on possible changes in procedures at the school level and did not result in any recommended changes to policy. Therefore, at this time, there are no committee recommended changes to the code for the board to consider. Usually during the months of April, May, and June, we schedule a workshop to discuss those recommended changes, followed by first and second readings. Again, however, with the lack of recommendations, those will not be necessary. So unless the board advises differently and no other statutory requirements arise, we will move forward making final preparations for the 2021 school year version of the code and get it ready to go to print this summer. I will conclude by again thanking the board for your continued support of this process.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. That concludes any comments that we have as a staff and I have. I want to thank the board. I don't know of any other boards that are really doing workshops. They're working to get their board meetings remotely. So I want to personally say kudos and congratulations for a very meaningful workshop and robust. And we tried to keep it just a few hours. And so I want to thank you for allowing us to do this and the effectiveness of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And thanks to all the staff that has worked on this. Dr. Grego, you mentioned Administrative Professionals Day. And I need to say our administrative professional has been online the entire time. And I forgot to introduce her in the beginning or ask if she was pregnant. Present, not pregnant. Present. I just want to see if she's still listening. Ann Simon.
Comic relief.
Yeah, yes. She's been here and I appreciate that. So do any board members have items that they want to bring forward before I bring one? Who has been our trainer for this session, our consultant, and wondering if we should do an online version or whether we should hold off and wait until the summer to finish up our program. during that process, I realized that the rules are that we have to attend 75%. A person has to attend 75% in order to be part of that master board training and recognition. As a board, because every single one of us has attended the entire time, we have all done almost the 75%. We're functioning well. We have a very good reputation with the consultants. And so the recommendation that I am going to bring forward, and it has been approved by Tina, the Director of Professional Development, is that we do a half-hour wrap-up. That half hour will give us the 75% of the time. And that we do that on May 5th with April leading it. And it would be sort of an evaluation. What did we learn from it? What can be done maybe to improve it? Whatever. She's going to work with that. And should we ever need the assistance from FSBA, that what would be 3.5, but probably 4 hours would be set aside, and we could call on them and they would not charge us. So I'd like to get everybody's thoughts on that, and then notify April and Tina as to what our decision is. So again, to wrap it up, we would do a half hour with April on May 5th in the morning, and then we would we'd call it a day, and we would have earned our master board training, our master board status. Ms. Long, your hand is raised.
Yes, I think that's a great idea. I still think that since we are leading the way with our meetings and our workshops, we need some kind of kudos.
Yeah, more than just a little time off, right?
Well, I just think we are way ahead of most school boards. Carol, when I go to those meetings, those virtual meetings on Friday, and to listen to other boards, they are nowhere near close to what we're doing.
That's true. That's
and
true.
You know, that just, I go to those meetings and I just sit and smile, because it just feels so good to know that we are so far ahead of other districts.
Mm-hmm.
And that just shows what a wonderful administrative team we have.
That's true. And how we haven't lost focus on the needs of the students, for sure.
That's right. The kids are benefiting from all of this.
Right. Well, thank you. Ms. Flowers?
Yes, I support what's on the table, and please relay a sigh of relief and special gratitude for allowing us.
Absolutely.
For allowing us this courtesy.
Very good. Dr. Carr.
Thank you, Mrs. Cook, for coordinating all that and for being our leader in this. You've really helped us get these meetings facilitated well, not missing anybody's hand, but then also to make sure that we are moving forward with the board training. So thanks for doing all that in the midst of all this. Sometimes it's hard to get motivated. So thanks for taking the all that.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. It was just all of a sudden, as the conversation was going on, it was like, wait a minute, we've done our 75%. So, okay, I am not hearing any negatives. So with that, I will take it back to both April and Tina, and we will receive, this one will probably be through GoToMeeting, which is a different format a little bit. If they can do Zoom, I'll ask them to stick with Zoom because everyone's familiar with that. But I will let them know and ask April to send out a notice or an invitation to us, and it will be, like I said, sometime in the morning. It may not be 9 or 9:30, but if everybody can be flexible with their schedule, we'll move forward with that. All right, is there anything else that needs to be brought forward? All right. Okay. Again, I want to thank all of the board members and all of staff for being brave enough to attempt to do our workshops this way. I think it has worked very well, and I appreciate all the effort that's gone into it. So with that, this workshop is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Cook. Thank you very much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you, Dr. Grego.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Starting to feel a little bit like